You're listening to Between Pages and Friends, a book club podcast hosted by Con and Lauren, two besties who read a lot of books, and John and Kyle, their supportive gamer husbands who've agreed to read with them. I'm John.
I'm Lauren.
I'm Con.
And I'm Kyle. Welcome back to our Throne of Glass book club. In this episode, we're starting part 2 of Queen of Shadows, chapters 48 to 65. There will be no spoilers for future chapters or books here, so if you've only read up to chapter 65 of Queen of Shadows, this is a safe space to process while we discuss. Additionally, mild content warning, we will be discussing themes from this book that include low-hanging towels, and on a more serious note, birth complications such as stillbirth.
And if you're loving this podcast and you want to discuss these episodes with us some more, or if you're just looking for an amazing community of other book lovers, you should check out our Patreon. You can join our Discord for $5 a month in the Snack Court tier, where we have dedicated forums for each episode in this podcast. If you'd also like early access to new episodes, merch discounts, monthly book club, and more, you can join the Peach Ring Book Club tier for $10 a month. Our Patreon is linked in the show notes or description box below.
Lastly, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you're listening. Writing a review and sharing with a friend is the best way to support the show. Here's a recent review on Apple Podcasts from Shelby M55, who writes, "My new favorite podcast. You guys, I'm so grateful. None of my friends or family read the type of books that I do, and I don't really get to talk through any thoughts or theories. I love the format, and you guys are hilarious. I was already reading Throne of Glass, and I'm about a book ahead of the podcast, and it's perfect. I drive a lot for work and bring you guys along. For times that I can't be reading because I'm working or driving, I get to review the previous book with you guys, and I'm reminded of little details I missed or forgot about. Amazing. If I could rate more than 5 stars, I would." Heart emoji. Shelby, thank you for this super sweet review.
Thank
Reading
you.
reviews like this make our day. It's so sweet.
You get to go with her to work. That's so fun.
Yeah. Just take your friends to work day every day.
Stuff us in your pocket.
And now it's time for a very short pronunciation guide. Queen of Shadows, chapters 48 to 65, new names and locations mentioned. First up, we have Nellie, the employee from Nezrin's father's bakery. Marta, the housekeeper's wife at the Falik country home who patched up Rowan. And lastly, the Milas Aegea, a.k.a. the God City, a.k.a. Antica on the southern continent. And that's it. Now it's time for chapter recaps. Over to you, Juan.
Thanks, Quan. And let's dive right in with the Duke ordering Manon to choose another coven of witches for breeding. Obviously, a bit hesitant after learning what horrors the Yellowlegs coven endured. The Duke has a small mission for the 13, which includes taking Cultaine for a ride to a small rebel camp, and we get to see her Shadowfire in action as they just annihilate everyone. Back in charming Rifthold, Aelin and Lysandra pose as two high-end ladies asking around for a certain opium dealer from the Shadow Market, since destroyed, who is said to have escaped, even though we already know that he's dead. Thanks, Arabin. At least you're useful when you're dead, you little punk-ass bitch. All right. Okay. The girl they find for the info tells them about the catacombs under the sewers. The party heads down into the sewers, they find the catacombs, and discover that it's actually a temple made of bones. And as they go deeper, they come to the very back wall of the temple with an altar in front of it. The back wall is completely covered with word marks, and there's a giant rendering of the Eye of Elena in the middle. The wall begins to shift and rearrange itself. As Aelin reads, she discovers that this is Gavin's deathbed confession. Pretty crazy. It tells the story of how one of the Vogue kings was trapped in this world when they sealed the Word Gate. Elena and Gavin battled the king and trapped him, or put him to sleep or something like that. And they built a tomb around his sarcophagus with the keep on top, somewhere in the Black Mountains, which in the old language is Morath. Yeah. I was waiting for Lauren's gasp, but she did it.
I wasn't reading the script. I was looking at you. Sorry. Okay, sorry.
Thank you. We can edit that in. So They find what they're searching for in the catacombs, which is the hellfire to blow up the clock tower. Back over in the Duke's hellhole, Manon meets with the 13 to take suggestions on choosing the other coven for the Duke in a bold act of defiance, clearly having discussed beforehand. They stand their ground together to tell Manon that they're not going to decide this or not going to choose another coven. Astrid claps back again, and Manon rushes over to her, pretty sure she was gonna kill her in this moment, actually, when frickin' Roland comes prancing through the door. Yoo-hoo, it's me, Roland. Am I late for the slumber party? Only it's not a fun slumber party. It's a slumber party of darkness and death, during which he sweeps his darkness across the 13, and Manon ends up tackling him in the dark and basically rips his head off with her claws. Yowza! In the aftermath of that, Manon notices that of the 13, those with normal eyes, no hint of gold, were the most affected. Manon was briefly affected at the start of that, but she could shake off the darkness in her mind quickly. So, back in Enchanting Rifthold, Nezrin catches up to the group with a message from Ren about all the forces at Morath, the soldiers, the witches and wyverns, etc. On the way back to the apartment, preoccupied with what they just learned, Lorcan, he tells her and Rowan that Maeve didn't actually send him. He actually came of his own accord to get the keys to keep them from Maeve because they would destroy her, so technically not breaking his blood oath to her. Also tells them that Athrel's ring that Aelin gave her, basically in exchange for Rowan, gives the wearer immunity from being possessed by the Vogue. And in a reverse climax, Aelin and Rowan almost do it. Okay, it was 50-50. Okay, that's all right. Yeah, all right. Meanwhile, in the Glass Castle, our boy Dorian is still going through it. And at this point, what are these chapters even for? I mean, honestly, Dorian's still suffering, in case you forgot. Thanks, Sarah. Appreciate it. Back over to the Duke's torture retreat, Manon and the 13 have another mission. The shadows of the 13, Phaline and Fallon, have spied winged creatures flying around the mountains. More of the Duke's surprises from the mountain, no doubt. Manon's grandmother seems to either not be getting any of her letters or literally just ignoring them. And then, surprise, we get a Cultane POV where we learn that she destroyed the prince inside her a while ago, and she's just biding her time to exact revenge. Oh yeah, baby. Back in Rifthold, which I heard is lovely this time of year, the king's men take Lysandra. Apparently the king received a letter queued up by Arabin's will, sharing information on Lysandra and what she is, and that figures. Even when he's dead, he's somehow both helpful and a prick. Nothing has changed. Anyway, they get another message from Ren about the meeting to take place in Oakwald Forest between the king and the witch matron. They plan to crash the meeting in the forest. More anticlimactic flirting from Rowan and Aelin, literally. But they finally make it to the meeting spot. They do some scouting, and this is the first time that the group sees Manon and the 13 and the wyverns. The king and the matron meet, pleasantries, I'll show you mine if you show me yours, etc., etc. In the meantime, Manon and Dorian chat. The real Dorian. Dorian, not Dorian. Right? Yeah,
Sure.
Okay. And then they get Lysandra pretty easily, honestly. It's kind of disappointing, but great, obviously, at the same time. I get a brief Dorian point of view here where he internalizes Manon's name almost as like a lifeline. Kale then disappears to go after Dorian to give him the mercy of killing him, only he takes the wrong path and walks right into Manon in the 13. I mean, if there's no other definition of just Kale, this might be it, honestly. The group catches up to Kale with Manon. Aelin and Manon chat. Aelin shows the scars from Baba Yellowlegs. Manon goes a little crazy because that's the whole thing with the witches. But they get Kale, they escape. Aelin traps Manon in a word mark with Kale's blood, and they run. Manon and the 13 chase after them. They cross the bridge to the temple as arrows fire from the witches, and Rowan takes one to the shoulder, meant for Aelin's heart. Aelin makes Rowan go ahead, and we get an epic battle between Aelin and Manon. Epic. This is definitely one for the books and movie worthy for sure. Aelin does some maneuvering around some pillars, causing a roof to collapse on top of Manon, which also makes the temple and the whole island begin to tremble and collapse. In a surprising turn of events, though, Aelin saves Manon, earning a life debt from the witch. They leave, they go to Felix's country house to get Rowan cleaned up. And literally, why does everyone have a country home in these books?
You mean all 2 of the people mentioned?
Listen, it's like any time we go somewhere else other than somebody's home, it's like, oh, just they have a country home. Let's just send so-and-so there. Or
To be fair, we know mostly the richest people in these books.
yes, that's true. That's why I was surprised that, like, I know he owns a chain of bakeries or something.
yeah.
What's he have, a bakery in every city in Aurelia or something?
Several summer homes.
Anyway, so once Rowan and everyone else is patched up, they head back into thriving Rifthold. Over in the demon hatchery that is Morath, Elide finally has a chance to escape in the wagons, but Vernon catches her and throws her in the dungeons. The Duke calls for Manon upon her return, shows her some reports to read on like their enemies, and it's all the info that he's gathered on Aelin, Adian, Chaol. She basically puts it together that Chaol had in that moment gone back to kill Dorian, and that they don't realize that Dorian is still inside. Afterwards, Astrid invites Manon for a chat in the mountains, and we get Astrid's story, which is so incredibly sad. She met a human about 80 years ago. She stayed with him for a while and returned with a child. But when the pregnancy ended with a stillborn, Manon's grandmother punished Astrid and branded her with the word unclean across her abdomen. Basically left her to die, but Sorrel and Vesta found her and kind of nursed her back to health. Manon reinstates Astrid to second. In the same kind of moment, Manon feels a tug that we've heard Aelin describe, and her and Astrid fly to Rifthold. Back in lovely Rifthold, Aelin pays off Lysandra's and Evangeline's debts. Rowan gives Lorcan the fake amulet of Orinth, and the fake Wordstone ring in exchange for Athrel's ring. Here we get another Dorian point of view. Yep, still suffering eternal darkness and horror. Thanks, Sarah. Again, Aelin and Chaol finally have a conversation about some things that happened, and I think their beef is generally resolved. I think Chaol might be on a more positive track, so let's hope we can start talking more positively about the man. Hopefully. We'll see what happens. Chaol and Nezrin have a nice moment. Maybe they'll be getting together when their plan in the castle is finished. And we conclude this chapter section with some Fey tongue and a promise for more. Hey-o!
There better be more.
To be more specific, Aelin and Rowan kiss, in case.
Finally.
Yeah.
We'll
That's
be
what
talking about that later.
Yeah.
In extreme detail.
I don't know if you
Is
can
there a lot of
expound.
detail?
There's not.
No, that's what's frustrating.
It leaves room for the imagination.
Sure. Well, thank you, John, for all of your lovely updates. Funny as always.
Okay.
We jump into chapter 48, and now having finished this chapter section, I'm less scared talking about Kaltain here, because we first just jump in, and Kaltain is, from the first time that we see, out of Morath, and she's on Abraxos with Manon, which I thought was crazy, that they're like letting these humans and whatever else just ride on their wyvern, because I felt like that would have been like some line for them, but okay.
Yeah.
And then we see Kaltain like using her fire or shadow fire magic, and it is terrifying, like extremely terrifying. I'm really hoping now that we kind of know that she's still in there, that she's going to be on Team Good Guys and this will be used against all of them. But for right now, I don't know. It was, I guess, cool to read, but scary altogether. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm assuming they only let Kaltain do that, like ride on the wyvern with them, because it was like a direct order from the Duke, and they were already
the Duke
like,
was riding with
butting heads.
Astrid.
Yeah.
So like they're all just taking a
I feel
ride.
like- yeah, I feel like he just kind of forced them into doing that, because I couldn't imagine any other circumstance where they would be cool
That
with that
may
either.
be part of the reason they train them to do it. Like, it's their transportation. It's a huge freaking thing. they could fit
Yeah, I
a
guess that's
good-sized
true.
army on 13 of them.
Yeah, I guess just in other books with like dragons and stuff, it's very like, I only take one rider. Like the dragon is like that, or the wyvern or whatever. So I guess just seeing that, it's just like, yeah, whoever, and come on in and let's take a ride.
It's like
it feels
you
weird
let one
to me.
person drive, as long as everybody's not trying to steer at the same time, it's cool.
Steer.
I don't know that anyone steers a dragon or a wyvern. I think they just
Sure.
kind of, you tell them where to go maybe, and then you hope
You
they
just
comply.
kind of like you type on their scales like a little GPS system.
I was like Morse code or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, take a left here. I had only written the little quote that was, I don't know, 4 or 5 times in this chapter, went on in her head thinking, you let them do this, thinking back to what she had been told. I just found it funny that it was so often repeated, and very strange that her non-existent conscience is suddenly
Thank you.
becoming so heavy.
That's right.
I think you're just seeing like the slow progression of her
No, yeah, for sure.
changing what she views or her perspective on stuff.
Yeah. More on that later.
Now you sound like John's recaps, like you're the weather report. Anyways,
Now it's over to chapter 49 for a beautiful little moment between Aelin and Adian.
that was perfect.
Thank you. I love this moment where Adian is expressing this grief over not being there for Aelin and all the years they were apart. Obviously, that wasn't his fault, but it was just a really sweet conversation. And I love that he's trying to help her learn how to lean on other people, especially those who are now in her court. Adian's literally her family, and she clearly has a really difficult time letting people in on her plans or trusting anyone with literally anything ever. But I love this line from him where he said, "The point is, I should have been there then, but I am here now. I'm healed. Let me share this burden." And then we also get another thesis statement from our thoughtful queen. She says, "I'm going to free magic, take down the king, and kill Dorian." The order of those last 2 items on the list could be flipped depending on how it goes. It's another little, in this essay,
Oh, okay. So in part 2, we will get.
Yes, exactly. And I love Adian saying, "That sounds a lot like, I have more secrets I'm going to spring on you whenever I feel like stopping your heart dead in your chest." It's also classic Aelin. So
Well, like for him, it's only happened the one time. Like,
he
But he
gets
knows her
it.
so
but-
well. I think it's nice too that he sort of nods at the fact that like what had happened to them had to have happened for them to become who they were. Because I feel like
Yeah.
if they were together the whole time, he says like he would have protected her. He probably
Yeah.
wouldn't have gone off on his own and become as strong as he is now. She wouldn't have had to become a strong person because he would have been there.
Yeah.
But
she would have been like Caltaine was at the very, very beginning, where she was just
Ooh, that's true.
kind of there and really just thinking about herself or who she was going to like date, or, you know, it was just like completely different than where she was or is now, obviously. Yeah. So then she goes to her room and she's with Rowan because we love him. And I just really like this sentence or this paragraph that I have, not just because it is cute and romantic, but also we don't really see a lot of what Rowan is going through at the beginning of Heir of Fire. It's so much on like what Aelin is going through and her perspective and like her struggles and her change. And about halfway through, Rowan's story starts to mesh with that and they grow together and they come out of it together. So I really like this little moment to see a little bit of Rowan from the beginning of Heir of Fire, where it said, "Her scent hit him as she unbound her hair and nestled into the pile of pillows. That scent had always struck him, had always been a call and a challenge. It had shaken him so thoroughly from centuries encased in ice that he'd hated her at first, and now that scent drove him out of his mind." So first of all, adorable. I know. But just like, I don't know how mean he was to her at the beginning, and he was obviously going through his own stuff, but the fact that like from the moment he like scented her, which would have been when she was drunk out of her mind
On the rooftop.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
getting reprimanded by a homeless person in the alleyway. But that he like already was, the ice around his heart was starting to thaw for her, and like
Aw.
that whole thing. Yeah, I just thought that was really cute and precious, and I don't know, maybe showed like where he was from the beginning of Heir of Fire and his struggles. So,
Yeah.
and it was cute.
Rowan.
I thought it was super interesting. I'm assuming that Rowan's inner thoughts here, he saw her scars on her back, because his inner thoughts, he says he owed the overseers of Endovier a visit. And it got me thinking, like, I know all the slaves are dead, And honestly, I wouldn't have put it past the king just to like literally kill everybody in the camp, so the overseers too. So like, who is this threat for? Is my thing. Like it, we don't. Doesn't have to be a discussion. I just thought it was kind of funny. It's like, isn't everybody dead at the like at the camps? Like, there's nobody left. But anyway,
We'll just burst in angrily, and there's some janitor like sweeping up, like, "What are you?"
He's still mopping up all the blood. Like,
Yeah.
you're too late. Sorry.
Well, I know when the king like was like, "Oh, we, killed everybody in Calicola and Enderveer," and
Yeah.
then he like Dorian got all mad and left and stuff, and then somebody said somewhere in that scene the king had plans to like start filling them up again, or they were going to start like trying
Oh
to.
yeah, that's true. That's
'Cause
true.
Yeah.
I don't know if
forgot
they're
about that.
they're using whatever they're mining out of these places or something, so it's for that reasons or whatever. So there's that,
Yeah.
but it is one of those like. So many people have died and whatever, and I get that you don't have feelings for those people, but like the overseers at Enderveer deserve a lot worse for more than just Aelin.
Yeah,
But sure, Rowan.
yeah, right.
Yeah. I had also noted some of Rowan's inner thoughts, saying that he needed to sort it out, needed to sort himself out too, no matter what he wanted from her, even if it was agony. And it just reminded me of when I heard the song Agony from Into the Woods and compared it to Dorian and Kale. And I was like, well, maybe this is more of a Rowan and Kale thing, because Dorian's really not in agony about her. He was for a little
Right.
bit, but he got over it pretty quickly. Much quicker than Kale.
He's in agony, just not.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a different kind. He's like the third singer in the song, and they're like, you're way worse than us, admittedly. We're talking about a girl, not demons.
Okay, so they are like dressed up and they're going to go like talk to Nellie, and they are talking about, I forget what it's called and I should have written it down, but like some sort of beast that's like hidden in the
It was
snow.
like snow
and-
leopard, I think.
It's a ghost
snow
leopard.
leopard.
Ghost
A
leopard.
ghost
Yeah.
leopard.
But it is basically a snow leopard.
Yeah, well, yeah. It really is snow leopard.
Yeah.
The snow leopard, ghost leopard. It said, Aiden went on, they're white and gray, so you can barely make them out against the snow and rock. You can't really tell when they're on you until you're staring right into their pale green eyes. And his smile faltered as Lysandra fixed her green eyes on him and cocked her head. So first of all, love that.
Awesome.
I'm totally shipping them. I love them so much.
From like two comments.
I have nothing to go on for this, but I love them. But also, I was like, maybe this is like some cool foreshadowing, since Lysandra talks about how she wants like her fangs back and the green eyes, and so there might be some moment where something's happening, and then all of a sudden Lysandra's just there and she's doing it, and it's gonna be epic. And
100%.
I don't know. So keep a watch for that because it's gonna be so cool.
Ghost leopard watch.
Yeah.
Can't see it till it's there, so I might miss it. But
It's such a dramatic name for what is basically a snow leopard. Like a white leopard in the snow, and the guy's first thought was, it's a ghost!
it's like way bigger and whatever.
Yeah.
Like, anyways,
Yeah.
I love them.
I loved this moment when Lysandra and Aelin were talking. But when Lysandra says, "Of course I like luxury. You think I don't love those gowns and jewels, but in the end, they're replaceable. I've come to value the people in my life more." And Aelin says, "Evangeline is lucky to have you." And Lysandra replies, "I wasn't just talking about her. You. I'm grateful for you." And I was just like, Lysandra, that is so nice. She's like finally getting a family. Like, we see this transition of her, obviously, in this book, from who we knew she was kind of in Aelin's perspective. Like, we kind of hated her before, and now we get these type of moments where she's obviously coming around and on Team Aelin. So it's pretty sweet to see like moments like this where they're forging a friendship and forging a bond. And I have another note adding to this a little bit later that we'll talk about. That's really awesome. But I
love
that.
the way that you say it's like we get from Aelin's POV, because it is just how Aelin perceived her,
Right.
is how we got to know
Yeah.
her. And so that's
Yeah.
why we didn't like her, not because she
Yeah.
wasn't great all the time anyway. And I've had that happen in other books where it like tricked me later that I liked this person, but it was because I was
Yeah.
reading someone else's POV
Yeah.
and they didn't like that person. So
Or you have it happen in real life. When people tell you about someone, they're like, oh, they're not that bad. That person was just an idiot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like the way you said that, because I've still been like, oh, but should we trust her? Because, but I like the way you said that. So thank you. That helps me.
Some reassurance.
And then we get an answer to our question from the previous episode when Aelin says she already knows that the opium dealer was already dead. She says, I think Arabin sometimes had no idea whether he really wanted to help me or not. It had been his casual mention of it at dinner that had set her thinking, planning. And I, contrary to probably popular belief, I had no recollection of this when I brought it up in the last episode. So just had to bring it full circle here.
All right, nice.
Well, and when we were talking about it in the podcast, and there was like the whole back and forth, like, wasn't he dead? Like, no, I didn't think so, and whatever. And then I was reading this, and it goes into it like they're talking as if he's alive, and they're trying to find him. And I like stopped reading, went back, tried to figure out like, is he actually dead? And then I kept reading, and it's like 2 paragraphs later that it's like, but I knew he was dead the whole time. And then I was like, oh, okay. Should have just kept reading.
Classic.
Also, in a previous podcast episode, one of Kyle's theories was something about trying to like blow up one of the 3 towers with the magic. And I was like, they don't have explosive material. And you were like, maybe they do. I don't know. And then
They have watches. So obviously they have time bombs.
Here we are, where they are now going to try to find Hellfire to have explosive material to like basically, I don't know, blow up or melt, or I don't know, whatever's going to happen with this thing.
Yeah,
this
it's very
giant tower. So
vague on how it exploded. He was like, oh, it melted people's bones before. But
I'm assuming it was something like napalm, because they said the ingredients in the urns were like separated.
Yeah.
Like they wanted to be careful not to mix them. So that's kind of what I pictured it as.
And I kind of wondered, like, depending on how fast, if it is effective, first of all, because I have questions about that. But if it is effective at knocking down the tower, how quickly magic will come back? Because it would be interesting. One of my concerns is the people who set it off getting away in time. But it would be interesting if it got set off, tower falls, magic is instantly back, and Aelin could just stop the fire from hitting people she cares about. If her magic is back instantly like that.
Yeah.
But who knows?
or Rowan could freeze it from his moment.
True, yeah, blow it out with the wind or whatever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. See, I thought because it was all like melting away, I thought it was gonna be like lava, like they're gonna like dump the barrel,
Buckets of lava,
like lava's just gonna flow
like
and like
Minecraft.
melt the tower. That's what I was picturing, and they'd have to like run away from the lava, like that's like coming after them.
The floor is lava.
Because they do say it erupts. They say something like it erupts or it explodes, but they do also say that it melts. So yeah, I did kind of think like, oh, it's got to be some sort of liquid base, whatever. We don't have to get into the science of hellfire, but
Especially because we haven't seen it in action.
Sarah J. Maas wrote the recipe for napalm in one of her books, and if you read it, you can make a bomb.
Stop! No. Maybe next episode though we'll like have this discussion where we know exactly what it is. I hope she explains it enough to answer these questions. Okay, so then this is the last line of this chapter, of chapter 49, and it just reminded me of when in Heir of Fire, whenever she's fighting the skinwalkers, they were like, come out, and I thought that was really funny. And then I forget what she said now. Maybe it was like whenever she was gonna like shoot the fire and she was like, surprise, or whatever she said. Yeah. And then this one where it said, Rowan murmured, so his supply is in the catacombs, it's now unguarded. She peered into the gloom below. Finders keepers. I just think it's so funny. I know that's stupid, but it makes me laugh. So just had to bring it up.
In chapter 50, this was a little nugget in here that I thought was very interesting. So I have talked about the Sword of Truth book series by Terry Goodkind. I think I've mentioned it once or twice before. This is when it's talking about Damaris being the Sword of Truth. And I was like, oh, I like highlighted it because obviously, you know, the whole series is called the Sword of Truth series. But I wanted to do like a little bit of research because it says that Damaris, the bearer of Damaris, can see the truth when wielding it. And the Sword of Truth, the actual Sword of Truth in Terry Goodkind series, at a fundamental level, there are some similarities between the two. So I'm going to nerd out for just a minute and talk a little bit about it. So
You're having a Kyle moment.
I am having a Kyle moment. And really, as far as Damaris goes, that's really all we get. They literally just say it can see the truth when wielding it. It's similar in to the Sword of Truth in the Terry Goodkind series, because that sword, the nature of its magic is truth, and it like seeks out truth. It's wielded by someone known as the Seeker, and in the hands of a true seeker, it serves as a weapon or a guide to the truth, and actually serves as an instrument of judgment. So the sword has like two sides. It's like a righteous wrath, and then a counter of like compassion and empathy, where one aspect of the sword, it's a means to like seek out the truth, determining whether or not targets or potential targets are guilty or evil. And if the wielder is certain that the target is evil or guilty of committing evil, magic of righteous rage fills the seeker and compels them to bring death as the judgment on the target. However, the Sword of Truth cannot harm those that the wielder knows to be innocent. So that's kind of cool. So like there's some more lore about that and some deeper like magic of the sword actually being a key. So that's not really important in this comparison, but I thought it was still cool. So there's kind of that fundamental truth similarity that I just thought was cool, since she uses the phrase "the Sword of Truth" to describe Damaris. So
That is cool.
it's my nerd moment.
Yeah, I was wondering if we were going to get more out of that, and because they do sort of glide over it in this scene. I was wondering if in the future we might get more out of that Sword of Truth situation.
So this next part starts a big, long conversation for me in all my notes for this whole entire chapter section, and maybe more depending on whenever we find the answer to this.
This week on Lauren's Obsession.
It really is like that. But yes, however long until we get the answers on this, and maybe we don't. And so I'm going to hold this on till forever, but whatever, we'll figure it out. So I have this like weird theory. So basically the note here, the quote, is when they're figuring out that the Vogue King is still there, and they're reading, is it Gavin's?
Oh yeah, Gavin's little.
Yeah, they're reading Gavin's confession, his diary, as Kyle calls it.
Yeah.
His diary.
Nice one.
That was really good.
Thank you.
But it said he could take any form, but he appeared to them now as a handsome man with golden eyes, the eyes of the Vogue King. And I was like, okay, so I've had this weird thing with eyes, green eyes, whatever, but these are golden eyes. And so now I'm like, are all the people with golden eyes connected? And we get a little bit later with Manon and the 13 with their eyes, but also Aelin and Adian have golden eyes, and I just have like a lot of things to like kind of sprinkle in here today. So we're gonna be talking about eyes a lot.
Aye.
Aye. But then it said they did not know his true name, so they called him Erewhon, the Dark King. And this is another shout out to Kyle for calling that he would be here. And I was actually texting with Connor, and I heard Kyle say like, ha ha ha, I called it, or something like that.
I said, well.
Yeah, that's what it was. Look who's right. That's what he said. And I texted Connor, and I guessed that it was about something else, but apparently it was about this part because he was right. So
Look what the Vogue dragged in.
Look who dragged in the Vogue. I was like that quote too. I thought as I read it, I was like, does Erewhon mean the Dark King, or is the Dark King a title? And they're like, we don't know this guy's name. We're going to call him Erewhon. Like they just pulled the name out of thin air. Could have called him Greg, but they went with Erewhon for some reason. Or am I supposed to believe that Erewhon means the Dark King? Anyway, that was just a little.
yeah, I think I with Greg.
Yeah. Oh,
So
man.
wait, so Kyle, did you Google the name Erewhon? Like, did you look up the name
No,
Erewhon?
I didn't. I don't Google anything. 'Cause
Okay, good. Okay.
I was
Good
not
point.
wanting to ruin
Smart.
it. I actually do have a website I could look it up safely because it's literally just the meaning of names, and it'll just tell me if it was made for the
Oh.
book or if it has a meaning.
It has a meaning. I don't know that it's really like related though. It says Erewhon means water, rain, rainbow.
Oh.
There's not really like.
Boy, she really missed the mark on that name.
Mine says
I'm
is
terrified.
it a Thai form of Airavata. It is a Hindu thing belonging to Iravati in Sanskrit, meaning possessing refreshment, water refreshment, or just
Yep.
having. Anyway,
Weird. Okay.
It
Odd
says
choice.
this
Yes.
all signifies Indra using Erewhon elephant as a vehicle.
yep.
He was an elephant in another life. probably.
Oh, that makes sense.
That's got to be it.
Yep.
Gave off total
Elephant.
elephant vibes. Pachyderm was the word I was looking for. Where was I? Oh, yes. Right, as always.
Oh gosh.
No, I was just curious about his name. That seemed odd to me that they'd just be like, oh, they'll pick a name out of nothing. But I did have an actual note that was them saying the king is insane if he plans to raise Erewhon. And then they said, who says he has it already? And I was like, yeah, he's had this for years. He's had this plan, and I use his plan lightly because I really don't think he's in charge, as you heard last week. But he's had it for years, and I seriously doubt he hasn't already risen, because otherwise they're just twiddling their thumbs for no reason. Like, if that's their main cause of action, and they've had this going on for years, now they're raising an army, but I see no reason why they would wait.
Well, yeah, and a little bit before this, we just learned that Morath was built on top of his sarcophagus.
Right.
So it's like,
Yeah.
we gotta be suspicious that at least maybe like the Duke knows something.
Right. That's what I mean. Like, the Duke is there, and the king is not, which I think gives more credence to the Duke is the main dude, not the king. But who knows? Who knows? Sarah, I guess.
Sarah. John and Con, because they finished the book.
That's true. Sometimes I forget that you knows.
Although, really, though, 90% of the information from this series has fled the scene by now. It's gone. It's not in my brain anymore. So a lot of the time, I feel like I'm reading these things for the first time with you guys.
Well, and sometimes even for my, I know out there theories, like Erewhon, it really was wasn't there a dude mentioned once in chapter 4 of the first book that I had to go and re-verify his name? Because there are things that I always say, if something's mentioned once and looked over, it's going to come back. But there are things that have been mentioned that haven't really come back. And things that I wouldn't be surprised don't. I mean, Lauren, you've had a ton of watches, and a lot of them have showed up. But there have been some that it's Green Eyes is kind of dubious at this point.
I don't know. It's making me not trust Green Eyes in other books, though. Because I'm reading another book, and they have green eyes, and I was like, ooh, don't trust them. And then they're the hero, and I was like, oh, my bad.
Well, now even our evil green Disney magic thing is not really a thing anymore. It's more you got to look out for shadow magic. It's not green
and black
anymore. It's
and whatever.
Yeah. But anyway.
Well, and I was just going to say, when I'm going back and I'm editing the podcast and it's just an episode or even 2 episodes earlier than what we're recording and where I'm at reading. And then I'm like, oh, I forgot that I even thought that theory. Or I forgot she even wrote that. And it was 2 episodes ago.
Yeah.
We need to have somebody on Lauren Watch who listens or watches the podcast to help all of your watches.
Thank you. I need an assistant watcher.
Yes, that's right.
I'm taking applications. I can't pay you, but you can hang out with us and listen to the podcast.
You can also be a moderator in our Discord if you want.
Hey, there you go. We could do that.
That's what we'll call our mods, is the Watchers.
Yeah.
I love it.
They're on Discord.
I
Watch.
did Discord watch. I love that so much. Okay, so my only note here, and John, you kind of mentioned on it earlier, was that Morath is the old language name for the Black Mountains. And while this makes sense because they are in Morath and I knew something was happening there, part of me thought, and I never voiced this theory since we're putting out random theories, but I've always thought that something was underneath Endovir and Calicola, and that's why they were having slaves mined there, I guess. And that was the king secretly searching for something. And so when this started coming, I was like, oh my God, that's where it's heading. It's going to be Endovir. And the whole time she was mining there and helping the king or something. So I'm not disappointed, I guess, but I guess I'm disappointed because I thought that would have been I thought that would have been a cool
theory
moment
Yeah,
or something. But oh well, it didn't happen here at least.
In that same vein of places' names, I really didn't pay attention to it except for during your recap this episode when you were pitching Rifthold as a vacay. That I was like, Rifthold's kind of a weird name for a city because they usually name cities about what they are known for. Has it been mentioned in the series that it is known for being a hold against a rift?
No, we've kind of joked about it on the podcast because of the Ah times rift thing.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
On to chapter 51. This is the moment when Roland makes a visit to the 13, and I was reading this and my jaw was on the floor because I literally do not remember this happening. My initial thought, obviously we learn a little bit later, a little more about this, but my initial reaction, or like little soft theory, was that he was still in there and still able to like have some consciousness, and he just let himself into the 13 where the 13 were to just basically have them kill him. That was kind of my little soft theory, and I was like wondering about that. But we do learn later that the Duke pretty much sent him there and that he like outlasted his usefulness or whatever. So that was kind of a bummer, but
whatever that means.
But I don't know. But like at the same time, Roland was still obviously in there because we get some of that when Manon is like about to turn him into a Pez dispenser. But like,
Oh my God, John.
what? That's what she does.
It's true.
I guess, but that was just harsh.
If you think that's worse than how she described what Manon did to the guy.
You could say that's kind of what he was downstairs too.
Oh my God. That was worse than my comment. Come on.
That's what I thought you meant at first, and then I was like, oh no, he said Manon did that.
Yeah, no, yeah. Goodness gracious. Anyway, that was the thought that I had. I was kind of bummed that we do learn for sure that like the Duke was like, oh yeah, I just kind of sent him there because we were kind of done with him. So
Unless that was just a cover.
See, that's what I'm
true.
saying. It felt like just like a throwaway line.
Yeah.
Like he was just trying to like cover it up.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Like Roland maybe like went rogue, and the Duke just was like, well, he did that, so like whatever.
I meant to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, I'm in control.
No, I was also like jaw dropped, shocked whenever he said his name was Roland. Did not expect that at all. Also, because it like mentioned that he was the one that Alid saw whenever she was like down there with
Yeah, we get
the
confirmation
witchlings or
of
whatever.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that whole thing too. So he's like been around. Just I didn't even remember he was there. Like I knew he got taken to Morath, was not on Roland watch. So took me by surprise.
The one time.
I know, but it was his like very last line, literally, and it said his eyes shifted, turning green, turning clear. It was a young man's voice that he said, "Kill me, please, please kill me, Roland. My name is Roland. Tell my." And then it stops, and I was like, "What was he gonna say?"
Delete my browser history.
Pop. What was he gonna say? Pop what? It's one of my favorite moments in Community.
Oh, God, that's good.
But for real, I do want to know what he's gonna say. Like, tell my mom, tell my cousin, tell my I don't know, somebody. So that's annoying to not know. But then just like Manon, like obviously kills him in an awful way, and then says Manon could have sworn he sighed, which is just really sad. Yep. All these people, they're just like wishing they could be dead instead of having these demon things. And it's just depressing, the whole thing. So, anyways, R.I.P. Roland.
Kyle.
Stop.
One of our previous episodes, somebody commented and was like, is Kyle okay?
I know. And I told him, I was like, Kyle, you have to stop making these things. People are going to think you're not. Anyways. Is anyone really okay,
Blink
though?
twice if you're in trouble.
Kyle. Okay. So we are back to my gold eyes theory part 2. This comes up a lot today, but this is when like Roland had come in and he had his shadows going and like taking all of their memories, and they were all being tortured, and Manon was able to like come out of it really fast. And so was Astrid, and I think a couple others too. But like Manon had noticed that all of those with gold eyes were okay quicker than the ones with normal color eyes, like blue, green, brown, whatever. And she had said too, like, gold eyes had always been prized among the black beaks, and she'd never wondered why. And then I was like, well, now I'm wondering why.
Find out, Manon.
I know, right? She like has all these questions, but she never goes to figure out the answers. It's actually really frustrating.
That's a good point.
I know. But she, in this moment, it made me think about how, like, Aelin has been attacked by multiple Vogue at this point and has always been able to come out of it and be okay, relatively fine, as where other people that she was, like, finding in the river with Rowan, and their, like, life is sucked out of them, like, almost immediately. Like, they didn't even have time to scream before they were, like, whatever. And so it's like, maybe this is why Aelin is okay whenever that's happening, because she also has gold eyes. I don't know. So that's where I'm at as far as this in my theory. I have more that will come up later. So it's coming together. It's coming together.
I never put that together, but I love that because, like, I guess I don't really think of them having gold eyes because they're like teal, but they are like teal rimmed with gold or something. Like they're specifically,
It's so specific that she had to hide them from the king so he didn't recognize her because of the gold part of it. And that whenever they look at Adian, it's the exact same eyes that she has. And so it's like, I don't know, maybe it's all connected.
I always pictured how she described Aelins and Adians as more of like a, not like an auburn type of gold, but like a, what you think your natural gold eye color like might look like. But I thought of how they described the witches, like Manons and stuff, as literally almost like a metallic gold. Maybe that's because sometimes they use the word like gold specks.
Flecks and stuff like that. Yeah.
Some people have gold flecked eyes.
For some reason I've envisioned that as like literal metallic gold, like within like black eyes or something like that. So I don't know if that makes a difference.
No, I get that. I guess here I was thinking too, like, because if a lead could be in Terracid and her family's predominant and they have witch blood, so like maybe there's something going on with Aelin's family, or I don't know. Like, I'm trying to make all these connections. I need like a family tree and a history of everybody's so I can put it together.
I'm on it.
Aelin and Adian too, I always pictured it like heavy on the blue, like gold rim is literally like the slightest bit of gold on the very outer edge. It's never been like a half and half situation.
I just imagined it be so bright still.
Yeah, like I have gold around my irises, and then the rest of my eyes are like blue-green. But I imagine, so I guess I just have always imagined the Ash River eyes to be like a really just bright version of that. Like they're just a lot lighter, I guess. I don't know. But I didn't really imagine the gold to be very predominant either. But that's why I like never put this together. But now I'm even more confused.
Lauren says my eyes are poop colored.
They are. They're poop brown.
Beautiful.
Wow.
True love.
I just stare into them.
I've always imagined too that they're more reflective of their power, or at least the line of power. So like Aelin's coming from Mala Firebringer, like that line. So hers is a little more that we kind of know that the Vogue and Fae created the witches.
Oh, right.
So I guess we don't really know like where the gold necessarily, what the power like comes from for them. But
we get later that it's like the king, because of the Dorian
Vogue
moment with Manon. And we'll talk about that later when we get there. But I guess where I was thinking that was that, not that they're related, even though everybody is like Rowan and Aelin are, but
his cousins.
Right.
I'm not saying they're all cousins, but like the same idea of the witch blood, or like the gold eyes keeping her safer with the Vogue.
Yes. I got you.
Yeah, I like that.
I don't.
Nice theory.
They're also afraid of fire, as we learn from when Kaltain describes it. So that could be, not to discount you, but that could be another reason why they're afraid of Aelin, if they sense any of that coming from her. Yeah, I would have to see Adian go up against it in order to verify your theory, is what I'm saying.
Yes, I understand.
That's true. Yeah.
I understand. We need some more research.
Yeah. Oh, that's me. So we get a glimpse, speaking of, into Kaltain's magic as it is used on Manon, and it seems interesting that it seems purely mental rather than an actual physical burning. And even more so learning that the Vogue still fear her power, even though it's not real fire, just an imitation. But I thought that was just a very interesting aspect of her ability, and it made me think back to like the town that they massacred. All those people in the fire weren't burned. They just thought they were being burned to death, So their bodies gave up and died. That's like super intense ability. Especially later on when we found out more of like the Duke's plans on like how to use it and how widespread it would be.
Yeah.
It's no good.
Yeah.
Again, the Cruciatus curse of Aurelia.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you say the Duke's plan to spread it out?
Yeah, isn't it his?
I'm pretty sure it's the King of Otterland with the mirrors.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it was the king who just.
I just thought you were making the Duke being the big bad. Is what your theory is.
Actually, he's not. Erewhon is. I don't know what Duke
Well.
is. Probably like his second or something.
It's like his Duke.
Like his Duke.
Why didn't I think of that? Son of a...
Okay, chapter 52. My only note here is just Kale ... And it's just like, I'm only bringing this up now because I think we see, hopefully, him turning around at the end of these chapters. So it's important, I think, in this episode at least, to bring up where he's at so we know where he ends up. But this is when they're coming out of the temple they find underneath the Shadow Market, and it said the Fey Prince hoisted her up and sat her on her feet. Neither of them immediately let go of each other. Kale waited for that twist and tug of jealousy, for the bile of it to sting him, that there was nothing, only a flickering relief, perhaps that Aelin had Rowan. He was feeling truly sorry for himself, he decided. I was like, why you gotta ruin a cute moment, Kale? Like, that was such a beautiful moment and a beautiful sentence, especially knowing like Aelin and Rowan aren't really talking to each other, so we're getting a little glimpse at them, like maybe they're gonna be okay, like it's this whole thing, and then he's feeling truly sorry for himself, he decided. Oh my God, freaking Kale. And then he's talking to Aelin, and he had said he almost demanded to know what her plans were for the other innocents in the castle, but it had been nice to have one afternoon with no fighting, with no one hating him, to feel like he was part of their unit. And I was like, everyone was going to do that from the beginning, you idiot. You're the one who like took yourself away from everyone by having this like attitude and awful things to say and the mistrust and whatever. Like, everyone came back and was like, Kale's part of the group. And he was like, no, I'm not part of your group. So I'm just really mad that he's like acting like
A toddler.
Yeah. It's really freaking annoying. But hopefully this is the end of that. Hopefully. I have no idea. I have no words for Kale because I loved him so much. So much. And I still do a little bit, but like I'm struggling with him.
He's showing some promise by the end of this chapter section.
Yeah, he is. This next one is just me like bringing up another question that we've had multiple times throughout the podcast, or even us just reading individually. That's the whole like, is Aelin immortal thing? And this is Kale's POV, so maybe this is just like a sentence thrown out there. But it was just like, Aelin, Rowan, and Adian stalked up to them with that unnatural, immortal silence. And I was like, oh, so Aelin's being like joined in with these Rowan and Adian are also immortal moment.
I picture it like Rowan and Adian on either side, and she has each of their hands, and they're doing that thing where she's going like, wee, and like lifting up so her feet don't have to touch the ground. And they hold her up until they can place her down silently as the queen.
Ah, yes. That's how the immortals like to come in. That's absolutely it.
And they're Fae. They're a little showy, you know?
Yeah. Well, and maybe that's just like Kale because he knows that they're all Fae or Fae related or something. But it was, I want to know because there's another part in this like chapter chunk that Lorcan brings up to like jab at Rowan that she's not going to live, like that she's, you know, their time is limited because of aging or whatever. So I just really want that answer to if she is or not.
Doesn't even know for himself. I think it said in the last
chapter
chapter where he was like, I don't really know how long, so maybe she doesn't either yet.
Mm-hmm. I think when John and I were reading this for the first time last year, John probably heard me ask this question like 800 times. Like every time something like this came up, I was like, but is she immortal though?
Yeah.
Well, here we are again.
When does that start to lock in? Like, at what age do you just suddenly be like, yeah, I'm going to look like this for the rest of my life?
Well, I think Adian says, like, at some point he says, like, he wouldn't know for another decade or so.
Yeah.
I think you just have to, like, wait it out
Yeah, at somewhere in your 20s to 30s, you stop aging and you'll be able to tell.
I guess you just never get wrinkles. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. I do like that it's that kind of immortality, though. It's just like it's a long lifespan where you look somewhat young. Because later on, obviously, we learn that Rowan gets hit and they're like, oh, one more inch and he'd be dead. It's not just like oh, you're immortal. Don't worry about anything. It's just an age immortality.
Well, that moment with Rowan, if we're going to talk about it now, I was annoyed because I was like, he's a freaking Fey male. Why is one arrow taking him out? But the whole time afterwards when he's healing, and it's all like, I should give humans like
more credit.
You know, more credit because he was human. Like, he doesn't have super fast Fey healing or anything. And
his magic is gone.
because there's no magic. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was annoyed by that when it first happened. I was like, what the freak? He's dying? Like, he's 300 years old.
Blood. You're just like, wait a minute.
Oh.
So that's how that
we'll
feels.
get there.
I just loved this part. It's when they're coming up out of like the catacombs and stuff, and Nezrim finds them, gives them the other note from like Ren, and also gives Adian a letter from his Bane. He's like, there's a tavern just 5 minutes away. Like, I'll write a response and be right back. And like Aelin just tells Nezrin, thank you right here. She says, thank you for all that you're risking. Thank you. And it says, Nezrin's eyes flickered as she said, long live the queen. And this got me so
baby.
fired up, bro. Like, I was just... This was almost like the first time. I mean, you get a sense of this without it being said with like Rowan and Adian, obviously. But I don't know, for some reason, this coming from Nezrin of all people, it's like she's been in the guard for a while. I don't know, something about that when she said it just really, really got me.
And like
turned
being
up, fired up.
in the resistance and everything, like they were doing their own thing. So for her to now just be like committed to... Yeah, so good.
What a line.
So good. I love it. Okay, so this is... Oh, I said it was in this chapter, and then I wasn't sure. It is. This is when Lorcan comes back. Look at me. And Lorcan, like, has Aelin by the throat in that whole intense scene. And it said he, being Rowan, wondered if Lorcan realized that if he killed her, Lorcan himself would be next. Then Maeve, and maybe the world for spite. And I was like, he's so freaking in love. It's not even funny, and I just love that for them. Not that killing is good. Don't do that, but it's...
But Lauren's swooning over it because we are hanging on to her dear life.
I really am. There's like nothing here,
matter.
Sarah. Yeah, if Aelin's not in it, it doesn't matter for him. That's precious.
At least you're doing it to everyone. You're not picking favorites. Get rid of the whole world. Try again.
Sure. And then they find out about this whole like ring that grants like immunity from the Vogue, which is just like so randomly thrown in there, I feel like. But it makes sense that this ring in the scabbard would actually mean something and they would take it away. Like the whole story was like, oh, I just didn't give any credit to this random ring in there. I'm only pointing it out here because I feel like that's going to play a huge role in something for someone. I don't know, because like right now Aelin is wearing it, but that doesn't mean that she always will. Like maybe she'll give it to someone else.
What a prediction!
We'll trick someone somewhere at some point.
It's gonna have an effect on something or someone at some point in the story.
Are you sure you want to call that shot?
That's why Sarah is
bold.
bringing it up here, so that we know. Anyways, so there's that.
I'm gonna laugh now if it never comes up again.
I know, right?
The Vegas prediction does not come true.
Stay strong.
The ring is never mentioned again.
Yeah. She loses it in the Avery. It's just like,
Immediately drops it down.
Oh,
the sewer.
darn.
Oops.
yeah.
Crap, get it? Because the sewer. Anyways.
Totally.
And then they are back at home. It's the evening, and there's about to be this like really cute moment with Rowan, and I'm like anticipating it because like they haven't talked to each other, but that's usually when the conversations happen. And I just loved this like one line in there that just said, "Minutes passed," and that's as like Rowan's in the bathroom. It said, "Minutes passed," and she shouted goodnight to Adian, whose echoing goodnight rumbled through the walls. I don't know why that was so funny to me. It's fun to just see them be regular people, I think. because they are doing these huge epic things and there's magic and like whatever. And instead they're just like, good night from across the house. It's just really cute.
It kept reminding me of Ethan from Crescent City, where he's like, please be a little louder.
Oh, yeah.
And this brings us to the next segment of our podcast called Con and Lauren Swooning Over Fictional Men.
All right.
Yay! See you guys.
There were just so many notes. We had to
So
categorize them, you know. So the first one is, then the bathroom door opened, a veil of steam rippled out, and Rowan appeared, a towel slung low across his hips. She took in the muscled abdomen, the powerful shoulders, and I wrote, hello, Prince.
Kyle was like, have you read any of, where are you at in the reading? Like, have you read stuff? And I was like, I just read Rowan having a low hanging towel. And he's like, okay, I know where you are. That was like the only thing I said.
She was weirdly stuck in that chapter for a while. I don't know. It took her so long to get through that.
It's like 3 days later, she's still.
The one
Move
sentence, muscled abdomen.
Quick side note, I did love when Aelin says to Rowan in this chapter, we both are experts at clamming up, so let's make an agreement to talk right now like even-tempered, reasonable people. Thank you,
Yes.
Aelin. This is
amazing.
This is everything we wanted. No miscommunication tropes here.
That's what I was just about to say. We hate miscommunication tropes, so I appreciate it. In other books too, when this like finally happens, where it's like, we are adults, we can communicate, like let's do that, and I appreciate it. So
Yep.
good job to them. But at
Back
this,
to Rowan.
yeah, So then they're like talking, they're trying to have this conversation, and it said his hand was warm as it clamped on her shoulder. She let him turn her onto her back and found him half on top of her as she peered into her face. And I was like, oh, that's so, wait, hold on. He's only in a towel. Calm down, everyone.
Is this when, I think this is when you texted me and you were like, Rowan's naked on top of Aelin right now. My kids keep interrupting me.
I know. That happened for both this part and the very end. Any Rowan Aelin chapter for this, I got interrupted by life happening, and I was like in the moment, and then, but that's okay. It still happened, and that's all that matters.
Continuing on this segment are a couple of quotes from Rowan that I just love so much, and I just thought they were so sweet, and so I'm going to read them. When he's talking about how Lorcan had Aelin, he says, God's Aelin, he had me and he didn't even know it. He could have waited another minute and I would have told him, ring or no ring. Erewhon, witches, the king, Maeve, I would face all of them, but losing you. He bowed his head, his breath warming her mouth as he closed his eyes. And then a little bit later, he says, I missed you. When I was in Wendlin, I lied when I said I didn't. From the moment you left, I missed you so much, I went out of my mind. I was glad for the excuse to track Lorcan here just to see you again. And tonight, when he had that knife at your throat, ... I kept thinking about how you might never know that I missed you with only an ocean between us. But if it was death separating us, ... I would find you. I don't care how many rules it would break. Even if I had to get all 3 keys myself and open a gate, I would find you again. Always.
I'm just glad they're finally saying something, because it was like they had a couple close moments and then it was just like nothing. And so, yeah, I'm just glad they're putting it all out there, and it's just so cute.
And it's kind of funny that they haven't, I don't think they've said like, I love you at this point. But
No, they haven't said anything like that. They haven't even said I like
he's
you.
like, I would find all 3 word keys and open up a gate if you died.
I think that's 300-year-old Fae male way of saying I love you.
Yeah, they're saying it in like 800 other ways.
Yeah, I think it counts.
It's cute though. I
Still
love
not
it.
saying it though. It's an easy 3 words. What are you so afraid of?
To whatever end. That's their 3 words.
Yeah. Oh, that's cute. Yeah, Kyle.
Yeah, get out of here, Kyle. Her reaction to Rowan saying all of this was that she blinked back the burning in her eyes as he reached between their bodies and took her hand, guiding it up to lay against his tattooed cheek, which just sounds like a normal, that's so cute. But knowing that whenever he had said like, don't touch me like that, was specifically about her putting her hand on his face and touching his tattoo, which was like a big deal to him because it tells the story of his lost mate. So this was like him giving that part to her, I guess, and like accepting, even though she doesn't know that at all. She's just touching his cheek. I was like, this is like a big deal for him. and was
Yeah.
really precious.
I didn't even put that together. That's so sweet.
She like leans back and like lets him have access to her throat, which was like a whole moment, but like in like a fey male aggression way. That's like a big, I don't know, giving myself to you moment, I guess. I don't know.
Get your words out, Lauren.
I know. I'm just like flustered. I don't have.
Breathe.
I can't
The
even
word
get
you're
my
looking
words out.
for is kink. It's a
Yes.
Right.
That's it.
right.
That's the one.
She's getting so red.
I know. I already was. And so now it's just there. And it's hot in here. Everything.
Yeah, it is.
The walls are closing in.
Anyway, it said, "No one else," she whispered. "I would never allow anyone else at my throat." Carefully, he closed his teeth over the spot where her lifeblood thrummed and pounded, his breath hot on her skin. She shut her eyes, every sense narrowing on the sensation of the teeth and the mouth at her throat, on the powerful body trembling with restraint above hers. His tongue flickered against her skin. Stop.
Chomp down.
I feel
Yes. Yes, Kyle. Oh, God.
stop. If I was having like the first like kind of moment with someone and that interaction was happening, I think I'd just kind of be weirded out. But for them, this is really cute and precious, and I love that for them.
You think you'd be weirded
And
out?
yeah,
Not sure.
I've never experienced it, so I don't know.
I mean, I guess if it's your first interaction with him, yeah, that'd be a kind of a weird thing.
If I have ever have an interaction like this with a 300-year-old fey male, I'll come back and let you guys know how it was. if I thought it was weird, if it was normal, like whatever.
So if you know any, just send them our way.
Halloween's coming up, Kyle.
It's an easy costume. All I need is a towel.
That's right.
Some Sharpie on your forehead, down your
A
cheek.
towel and those fake vampire teeth. Just like the cheap plastic.
My last few notes for this chapter.
Oh, yes.
Stop.
Your few notes.
I had
Stop.
I had to put them in here because I opened my
Don't
Kindle
stop.
notes. I had to put them in here because I opened my Kindle notes and I was just laughing at like the succession of
Yes,
comments
absolutely.
that I had left.
Yeah.
So the first
She had
quote,
to put him in here, you guys.
I had to.
Yeah, she had to.
Didn't have any other
It
choice.
was a necessity.
I mean, if you're gonna have a podcast where you talk about Rowan Whitethorn,
Yes, it is a necessity.
Yeah.
Wasn't this boys go get a drink so that we could fangirl? Like,
this is our segment. So
let Connor talk.
thank you. As I was saying, the first quote is Rowan saying, "I want to take my time with you to learn ... every inch of you." And I wrote, "Yeah, you do." He says, "I don't want to have an audience when I make you moan, Aelin." And I said, "Yeah, you will." Lastly, Aelin thinks maybe she should make Adian go stay somewhere else just for a night. And I put, "Yeah, she should." Please.
With Adian's hearing, I don't think there's a safe spot in Rifthold.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and not knowing he's heard all of this conversation too. Like,
Yeah. He's like already yelled goodnight, shoving his pillow into his ears. I said goodnight.
she says immediately after that, "But wyverns, witches, army, Erewhon." And I was like, "Oh, what a buzzkill." Why'd you gotta do that? And then we jumped to chapter 53, which is just rude of
Yep.
Sarah to go from one to the other.
Whiplash.
I mean,
I just wrote, pour out another one for our boy Dorian, who likes to drink pain, fear, and sorrow these days. It's an acquired taste.
yes, that's right.
That is rough. I had notes
Okay.
from this too, but your
Poor guy.
sentence basically just wrapped it all up. John kind of mentioned this in his chapter recap from chapter 54, her being Manon. Her shadows had reported that very morning about spotting lean winged creatures with twisted human forms soaring through the night skies. And then it was like a little more description, and then just said the majority of Morath's horrors, but not unsuspected, had yet to be revealed. And I wasn't expecting, I guess, just other weird humanoid creatures.
Right.
Other than, I guess, the Vogue that have appeared. Maybe they're just like a different variation of a Vogue demon thing, because we have princes and kings.
Were those the babies?
Maybe these are... Yeah, maybe they are the babies. I mean, they were already toddlers or whatever when Elite saw them.
That's the only thing I could think of. If it is something we've already seen, that's the only thing I could think of.
I don't know, and I don't know that I want to find out. So there is that. And then it switches to Kaltain's POV, which I was not expecting to get at all. So that was a huge surprise, because I don't think we've had anything from her POV since Throne of Glass, maybe. Like, that's the last time we saw her, really. And it was all just like, I just want to marry Prince Dorian. And then now it's like completely opposite of where Kaltain is, which is crazy. And then we get this whole insane story of how she's actually Kaltain inside there, and how she was able to defeat the demon inside. And it's honestly really depressing and sad how she's like, I just let them do whatever to me and use my body however they want to, and like whatever. And it's just super creepy. Also knowing that it was Kaltain actually doing that to that village with Manon when they were doing that and like killing all those innocent people. But just like the way that she was able to take bits and bits of the demon inside of her, and it had like no idea she was even still in there until she was able to take like a giant chunk. And before it could tell anyone, she leaped upon it, tearing and ripping with her shadow fire until only ashes of malice remained, until it was no more than a whisper of fire. It did not like fire of any kind. So like, holy freaking everything for that. Like, just amazing. But also, it kind of gives me hope maybe that like if something does happen to Aelin and she gets stuck in a ring or a collar or something, that she'd be able to get out of that because she has fire magic. Like maybe that's like her like safety net or something. And then it also gives me hope for Dorian, because in these chapters saw that he is there and is kind of like trying to stay connected to the world, like with this connection to Manon. So maybe he's also going to be able to fight back or something. Maybe they'll just have like permanent necklaces for the rest of their life, but they're themselves. I don't know.
First of all, called it. Put you in there. There are honestly a few phrases in this book, or sorry, not this book, I haven't finished the book, but in this chapter section, that I would feel comfortable being like, I could call 80% of the rest of the series, but I won't, because
He told me that. I know.
I was like, in this specific chapter section, there was just things where I was like, it's all coming together. But
well, she is out here writing thesis statements, so
she is.
Yeah,
which
she
makes
laid it out at the
easier.
beginning.
But the grand sweeps, we'll see. I'm not going to do it because like I'll wait till we're actually in the books or whatever, but
please do it. I would love to hear it.
at the end, with my other theories, perhaps.
I'm afraid of another Sorsha moment.
See,
and he's just
that's
gonna, like,
the thing.
And this is how he defeats the King of Otterland. And then I'll be like, well, there, I don't need to read the book now.
I told her that, like, I told Lauren about this. I was like, this might be quite egotistical of me. But, like, she said that I ruined Sorsha for her because my prediction was correct. And I was like, I don't want to chance ruining the series for you if I'm right. So I don't know if I should say it, or if maybe at least Lauren should take her headphones off when I say it.
Yeah, and then I could just decide to cut it out. If
I was like, I'm going to have to edit. He said that to me. And I was like, well, I edit half these episodes. And also, there's a ton of first-time readers listening with us. So maybe, I don't know. Maybe Kyle can go into the spoilers Discord, drop his intense theory, and then get out of the spoilers Discord and let everyone else. Oh, okay. Just kidding.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't open any of those.
I haven't yet.
I don't like the idea that everyone's talking about us, though. Probably making fun of us. And we have no idea. In the spoilers Discord chat, they're probably like, how dumb Lauren was with this stupid theory. And
There has not been a single message like that, just so you know.
okay, good.
Maybe if you pre-make one for like, here's spoilers for the last episode of the Throne of Glass podcast, I will quickly put my endgame theory in and then leave and never come back till the end of the series.
I guess technically you could do that in the Kingdom of Ash chat.
Maybe we can revisit at the end of this book
Oh,
and kind of
Oh,
see.
sure.
I see. What you
Actually,
mean.
Kyle, if you could write us a thesis statement and a
there you go,
5-paragraph essay with an intro paragraph, at least 3 body paragraph, and
Due August 26th.
I'll get you a
See,
rubric.
that's the exact problem. Is like predicting is like a test. I'm amazing at tests all throughout high school. Homework, not so much. If I have to write and edit a paper, you can forget about that one. But I will come for the test, and I will make up for not doing any of the homework. But yeah, we could revisit it a little bit. I have some at the end of this section, but at the end of every book, I feel like, yeah, if I can give like a grander
Yeah.
spread.
Sure.
But the only note I had from this chapter, however, was that Calthane said she had forgotten the name she'd been given, but it made no difference. She only had one name now, Death, Devourer of Worlds. And I was like, that's a really cool backstory, Calty, but you can't give yourself nicknames. That's not the cool thing to do. You don't get to decide. You get this BA nickname. Other people to get to choose that.
I mean, the King of Otterland calls himself like, what was it, like
No thumb.
overseer of the whole world, or
His
of the-
Imperial Majesty.
Yeah, something ridiculous. So
Yeah.
Caltane can do that too.
Well, I feel like if you're a tyrant king, that's a different story. You could tell people what to call you or kill them. But like Calthane,
I mean, she'd
can't-
just kill you. I feel like
could.
at this point,
she
she's just
could
kind of over
any day.
it. Okay, Kyle.
Moving on.
Okay, chapter 55. This is one of those ridiculous theories or things that I think I would have said last episode, but because nothing came of it in the episode, I didn't write it down. So I take like a bajillion and one notes, like more than any of you, and I don't put them all in the episodes because a lot of them are unhinged. For the things that I do say, I just want to make sure you all understand there's more. And this is one of those moments where they are having dinner with Arabin. Arabin just like casually says, oh, the captain couldn't be with us or something. He's enjoying his time on the roof. And she's like, oh, he knows everything. And then like 2 paragraphs later, it's like, ha ha ha, but he doesn't know that Lysandra and I are best friends. And it's like a whole thing. And we've been working together. And I wrote down like, you just said he knows everything and he knew that Kale was on the roof, but he doesn't know that you and Lysandra are working together and like that's going to be a thing. And I just didn't include it because like Arabin died and I was like, well, that was that. I guess nothing came from it. Until chapter 55, where
What
it
do you
said
know?
he'd known about Lysandra, about their friendship, and he didn't like to share his belongings. And that's him, even after death, screwing them over. I was totally right about that. And stupid for them to not think that, but whatever. I was right. None of you knew that I was even questioning it, but I was right. So
This is why when you ask me, like, when you're like, I'm not sure if I should put it in there or not, I'm like, put it in there.
yeah.
the
But like
note
he
in the
died. So I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's the end of Arabin. So like nothing came from it. Like it wasn't like
Yeah.
I thought there would be a future
Sure.
where he would come back and screw him over after he was dead. I should have thought that, but
And there was a reading of the will, was my thing. I was like, did they
Yeah.
not read the entire will to everyone in that
front of
room?
everybody,
Because, like,
yeah,
if that's
right.
part of the will,
and she faked the will. She switched it up. So like she wouldn't
Yeah.
have included that part.
Yeah.
Oh.
You know?
yeah, she re-includes it. By the way, Lysandra is a shapeshifter. And
Surprise me in 3 weeks when
Well, was it his will or was it like triggered by his death? Like, did somebody else have a letter?
I think somebody
or-
else.
I don't know. I
I
thought,
thought
it was part
I thought
of
it
his
said
will.
it was part of the will. Yeah.
Maybe when I wrote that in the recap, I had just assumed that it was part of the will. So that's possible.
I'm gonna search for it.
That was beautiful.
Thank
Right.
you.
I'm thinking now it might have been just a letter of like upon his death and not so
I think
much
so,
his
too.
will. Because that would make sense as to why, like, obviously it wouldn't have been in the will.
Yeah.
So this is Evangeline when she comes to say they took Lysandra, and Aelin says who, and Evangeline says the king's men. They came with a letter from Arobin, said it was in Arobin's will that they be told about Lysandra's bloodline.
Yeah, see?
Super interesting.
You have some questions to answer, Sarah. Some discrepancies.
Interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. Well, like maybe because he was investing so much in Lysandra and he knew so much about Aelin's background and like that there was something to gain there. Maybe that's why he even chose Lysandra to be the person that he invested so much, because he knew this about her.
Maybe in the will it just said, and here's the sealed letter you need to give to this person, and they didn't know what was in the letter.
Check it. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway, is
All
this
right.
me?
Yes.
It's me. What is this? Oh, okay. This is another instance where I feel like Adian has to be able to hear this like mind-to-mind speak that's happening. I don't know. I'm still so curious about this, but it says he, Rowan, met Aelin's eyes over Evangeline's head, and then in italics it says, we need to be out of this house in 10 minutes until we figure out if he betrayed you too. As if he'd heard it, Adian edged past them going to the warehouse window, and I was like, okay, but like, can he though? I'm still so confused.
His hearing is so good, he can hear into other people's minds.
He
If
can
he's
hear
close
the
enough.
thoughts.
Yeah.
Well, and I didn't write down all the italics because you guys were all on me for italics last time, but
I wasn't on you for italics.
Kyle was on me for italics last
I
time.
was on her for italics.
Yeah, and I just think everybody can talk to each other's mind at this point.
I feel like it makes
It's a
sense
freebie.
that Rowan and Aelin can, but these little like, there's just been a couple of these throwaway lines about Adian hearing it.
My thought is that he is such a battle-tried like warrior. He just like knows what needs to happen and like what needs to be checked
Yeah.
next. He's
Like
like
he can just read Rowan really well.
he's just always one step ahead of the situation.
Just read the room in general, yeah.
Or like
Yeah.
he would have,
Okay.
that would have been his first move, but he let Rowan say it. Or like he's not trying to like step on
I see.
Rowan's toes or something. There's another line somewhere that's just casually put in where she notices that Adian like, or maybe it's Manon, that Adian like submits to Rowan or something. Not like submits, but like follows his command, or like he's
Oh,
Yeah.
it was
second
him submitting
whatever
to
Rowan's.
Aelin.
No, it's definitely, I'm talking about specifically to Rowan, and like they're having this like moment where Adian is like kind of stepping back to like let Rowan be whatever with Aelin, and he's not
Yeah.
trying to be like the number one dude anymore with the only blood oath and blah blah blah.
That makes sense. All
I
right.
don't know, but this is it, and it's all coming together. They all coming together.
You're in the stew.
Here it goes. Stir it up. Yep, there it is, John. But it said, between the king, Dorian, and the wing leader of his aerial cavalry, with a delivery of one new prisoner headed to Morath. So they're all coming together, and then we find out later that Aelin and them go to like try to save Lysandra, and everyone's gonna meet in the woods, and it's gonna be a whole party. And I was just excited about it. Like,
If you go out in the woods today.
Oh, man.
yes, I'm excited about it. That's all I was saying.
The last note I had for this chapter was just after Aelin is like pushing them to go save Lysandra, and Kale gives some resistance at first and then gives in. So it says he held her gaze, his shoulders squaring, as he said, "Never again," as they're both thinking back to her being in front of Nehemiah's body. And Aelin was like, she didn't know if she believed him. In our notes, I just have the gif of Justin Bieber's "Never Say Never." 'Cause I don't think she believes that he's going to fall in line with that "never again" promise.
Chapter 56. I think I should have just clumped this with Connor's italics. Like, we literally just talked about it. We had a little Justin Bieber interlude, and we're back at it with the quote, "His calloused fingers scraped against her cheekbone, then caressed the shell of her ear. It was," and this is Aelin's POV, "it was foolish to even start down this road when every other man had left some wound in one way or the other, accidentally or not. There was nothing soft or tender on his face, only a predator's glittering gaze," and this is him saying out loud, "When we get back," he said, "remind me to prove you wrong about every thought that just went through your head." How did he not hear her thinking that. Like, that wasn't even like a as if she said italics conversation to you. This is like literally just her having a moment to herself, thinking like, ooh, I'm a little cautious, I don't know. And then he's like, I literally just read your thoughts and I will prove you wrong. Like,
I wholeheartedly disagree. I feel like it's two people falling in love, and he knows her signals. He knows, like, he has seen her at her lowest point, crawling out of it. He knows when she has a look on her face saying that she does not think whatever is happening. He can tell what the gears are turning behind her eyes, and that's
because
why
he can read it.
No.
He can hear the gears turning.
Lauren, I'm on team mind read.
Thank you. You
am
honestly,
too.
you haven't given your point, so which side you're on. So I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you. See, so
For
Kyle,
this
you're allowed.
instance, no.
If this was the only instance, then I would think not. But
The reason why is like there are no italics. If you're going by that
Yeah.
metric,
That's what's even more proof to me.
I feel like you're just so against people able to read body language. Like, these are people in a book. They're not sitting around expressionless while these thoughts go through their mind. Like, every man I've ever had has left a wound on my soul. Like, she's got pain in her eyes that he sees.
No.
You guys hash this out.
This,
We'll be back.
I wish this was the only conversation we've had about this. I wish we only
too.
talked about this in the podcast.
Oh my gosh. That's funny.
We're like, oh, so what'd you read today? And then it like sparks this whole thing, and I don't know.
We'll just have that conversation silently in our minds. Don't swear at me.
Oh, notice that you didn't have any facial expression while you did that, so I wasn't able.
I also wasn't looking at you. I was looking at my camera to give the viewer the illusion that I was looking at you.
Oh.
Anyway,
Okay.
move
We're
on with
moving
your
on.
notes.
Okay, this next note was just funny. Like, I literally laughed out loud at this moment. He's saying, let me prove everything wrong to you. And so they're like having this like moment, slight physical touch. Like, she's going to kiss his neck, and it's like kind of like mirroring what he did to her earlier. And it's like a whole thing. Aylin, he groaned, her toes curled at the roughness in his voice. He had said like they shouldn't do this or whatever. And she said, too bad, she murmured against his neck. She was smiling when the mattress shifted. Steady footsteps padded toward the dresser, and the sound of splashing filled the room as Rowan dunked the pitcher of cold water over himself.
This is pretty funny.
That is so funny. He just took the entire pitcher of water, dumped it over his head, and then went back to bed like no big deal. Oh, it's so good. So funny.
so good.
Chapter 57. My very first note was her talking to herself, her being Aylin. They're all sort of camped out around the meeting, and she is stuck back with the normies, the humans, because she has no extraordinary physical ability like the others do, stuck in her human form. So she says, if she had her damn Fae form, she could be helping instead of lingering behind with Kale and Nesrin. But not a useful thought, she told herself. She would make do with what she had. And I just wrote, good job stopping your negative self-talk, Aylin. That's a very healthy thing to do.
Yes.
Stop it before
Great
it
work.
gets anywhere.
Kudos.
Especially when she's next to Kale. Like, good job.
Yeah, we don't need that.
Don't
Yeah.
bring that negative energy, Kale.
John, can you turn the air back on, please? Thank you. It's getting toasty down here.
Splash of cold water all over yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's my
Dunk
pitcher?
a whole pitcher.
Ooh, thank
You said over his head.
There you
I
go.
don't think that's where he poured it.
Whoop.
Not where he needed it.
Which head are we talking about?
Okay.
All right, come on now.
You made the joke. Whatever.
Speaking of, my next note.
Good transition.
Thank you. This is the part in chapter 57 where they're seeing the wyvern for the first time and talking about how large they are. And Rowan says with that wingspan, they could probably fly hundreds of miles a day. And Aylin thinks he would know, she supposed. And I wrote, yeah, he would.
That literally doesn't make any sense.
I
Okay.
really
Yes,
don't
it
get it.
does.
It only makes sense if you've read ACOTAR because they compare the wingspans.
You're literally only referencing the word wingspan and not the sentence.
No,
Yeah.
he's talking
doesn't
about
make
how
any
big their
sense.
wingspan is, and she thinks he would know, like Rowan would know, because he has a wingspan in his other
You
form.
have no idea how many girlies, like book girlies, reading this series with us just cracked up laughing, and you're ruining the moment.
I literally didn't even think of him being a hawk. I did not think of him being a hawk at all. I thought she just meant like, oh, he would know because he's old
Because
and has
he's
seen
old.
dragons.
Yeah,
Like,
I thought
I
that
wasn't.
too. I literally
wasn't
thought that
thinking
too.
about a hawk at all either. I guess. But I was just thinking about.
I mean, I haven't
wingspans.
read ACOTAR, so that's totally for all of you. But
Get your minds into the gutter is what
Yeah, you guys got your minds on the wingspan.
I've always
and
got
that's
one
it.
toe in. I just need to go
I
a
always
little
got my
deeper.
mind on the wingspan. Get your
Anyway.
mind into the gutter.
for the sewer, I guess, for this series.
Ew, gross.
Surely they
I don't
have
know why that's-
gutters if they have sewers. they have like working timepieces and like all this other stuff, but they
Running
can't
water.
catch the leaves as the rain falls.
Yeah, ready.
But they're like seeing the wyvern for the first time, and I just thought it was really funny that like they describe all these things about the wyvern and whatever, but like the first sentence, like the first description is the smallest of them was sprawled on his belly, face buried in a mound of wildflowers.
It's great.
I love the Braxos.
I just realized I forgot to put a note in here because right after this, they're like, the normal ones are doing something else.
Yeah, exactly. Like that they can tell right away that he's
Yep.
not one of the normal ones.
He's a dog with wings.
So good.
I love kind of in the same moment. It says when they're about to face off with the witches, Rowan notices that Aelin's panicking, and he says, "You took down one of their matrons. You can take down their inferiors." And it's just like, oh, snap.
yeah.
Thanks, Rowan. Get some confidence booster. Jeez.
Such a good line.
Loved it.
Chapter 58. I guess I'm just like all sorts of theories today. I don't think I've had any notes other than that Rowan's hot and then unhinged theories on the side.
Yes.
Thank you. But this is actually, I think, a point for Kyle's theory of is the king actually like
Mark
a
one for me.
Vogue person? And again, maybe this is just one line. I'm like blowing out of proportion, but the line was from Manon, such a reek from these people. How was her grandmother not grimacing as she stood before them? And she was standing before the king and like having a conversation with him. And I guess Manon wasn't. Still, it was like to point out that all of them, because we know that Dorian and all of the people with them had rings and had that power and had the smell of the Vogue or whatever. So maybe the king does too. So then maybe the king is a Vogue, or maybe he's just smells like, you know, like when you're like cooking bacon and then your like your clothes just smell like bacon all day. You know what I'm talking about? So maybe he just smells
The
like
dream.
Vogue, like it's in his clothes. I don't know.
He's been burning the rotten milk and vinegar candle too long.
Yeah, that's right.
I will say, like,
Gross.
to like hesitantly remove that point from myself, if the smell of the king is what's giving me the point, that smell was never mentioned before in any of the previous books, and they were
that's
close
true.
to the king. So
Yeah.
That is true.
hesitant removal of that point. I'll take it when it comes, but this is not the moment.
Do they say it about the Duke? That the Duke smells?
I don't think
Does
they.
the Duke wear deodorant?
I
I don't know that they
I
do
think
either.
it's been mentioned.
That is kind of interesting.
Because they, like, specifically Manon is always talking about how it smells. So I don't
Yeah.
know if it's been specifically the Duke, whatever, or if it's just like, and it smells like Vogue in
Yeah.
here, and we assume it's Caltaine and whatever, but
Well, and maybe it's only smellable by those with strong smells. Like in the earlier books, Selena and Dorian and Kale probably don't have this heightened senses. So who knows? They know, but they won't tell us.
Sarah knows. Oh, John and Con, is that who you're talking about? Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Oh. And then my next note, I literally read this and I screamed, John!
yeah.
They said it. They said
I know. But it said his friend unharmed, but not Dorian. It's not Dorian.
It's not. It's not him.
But you just keep calling him that, and it makes
But
me
it
laugh
is.
every single time that it's like, "Get back to not Dorian." I just love that they
I
also
thought the
said
same
it. So.
thing.
Speaking of not Dorian, though, it says his sapphire eyes went right to Manon and stayed there. It was like every POV was saying sapphire eyes, not black eyes.
Yeah. So I saw this note and I was like, whoa, how did I miss that? And then later I was writing a note for another chapter and it said sapphire eyes. So I like looked it up in the book and I typed sapphire eyes and it's like every single time I think that he's been here, it is showing like his sapphire eyes. And so people are like, it's kind of been like hinting that he's still there this whole time.
So it's not Dorian.
Yeah. And then I'll just jump to this one since we're on it. But it later says, and the words were his own when he's speaking to Manon. So now we know he's still in there. Our boy is still in there. He's still fighting.
My boy.
So, my boy.
That's my boy. My boy.
So yes, that's great to know at least that all these chapters weren't just like
Just break my heart.
describing his suffering. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, I had to note also when Manon is like noticing the king as he's like strutting up on his horse, a massive sword hung at his side, and I said, yes, how could we forget nothing? Of course,
In the same note, I had typed, "Don't worry, it's nothing."
it's nothing.
Oh, this? No.
This whole thing.
They don't even need to mention its name. It's nothing.
Or his name still.
Yeah, that's true. I'm so surprised that they literally didn't say nothing hung at his side, which would have been, honestly, would have been funnier, I think.
Yeah.
Because it seems like every time they want to mention it, she makes a point in using the name. So I was really surprised here that she just didn't just call it out.
Or saying like everyone knew what the sword's name was.
Yeah, it's like, okay.
Well,
all
is
right.
this
Anyway.
Manon's POV? Manon wouldn't know what
Yeah.
the sword's name is, maybe.
Yeah, it is.
Well,
If
yeah,
it was
right.
if it was Aelin being like, and he walked up there with no thong at his side, like that would make sense. But
Yeah, I guess so.
I did note also during Dorian and Manon's conversation the reaction of the Vogue inside of him being very afeared of it, of her
Yeah.
eyes, the gold, which we mentioned earlier from Roland's attack. So it is interesting to know that it's not just a maybe resistance to their abilities, but like they are afraid of the eyes of the Vogue King, as it called it. Interesting.
this just goes back to my gold eye theory. We're back. I think this is the last time it appears. If the gold eyes come from the Vogue Kings, which is where like Manon's family line, I guess, their bloodline would be, right? Because Astrid's
Yeah,
her
the
cousin.
witches.
So it makes sense that they all have, like gold, and that some king was somewhere in their making of being witches. Whatever. Makes sense. But we also know that like Gavin and Brannon and all of those people that, or not Gavin, but like Brannon, who's in Aelin's bloodline, was there with Erewhon and like was there fighting them and also has some sort of something. So maybe I'm holding on to this theory that maybe her eyes are also something weird going on with Vogue King or something. She's going to be Vogue Queen. I don't know. But I'm holding on to something with the gold eyes for all
Erewhon's
of them.
your dad.
But,
Daddy. Oh, no.
that'd be bad. But I do think, like, the witches with gold eyes, like, maybe they can't be taken over by a Vogue prince if they have Vogue King eyes. Like, that also makes sense to me. So, I don't know. But there's something going on with the eyes.
Golden eyes.
Watch it. 6'5", gold eyes. Anyways,
I'm looking for a witch in Morath.
gold eyes.
White
Went two
hair.
different directions with that joke.
Iron teeth.
Yep.
Well, now it's time for another swoon segment, but an unlikely one this time, featuring a different prince.
My man.
I was like dying. I could not stop laughing at this whole scene where it's like actual Dorian trying to like force words out to flirt with Manon.
And of course, like the one time Dorian actually gets out would be him trying to like hit on a lady. Like, how Dorian?
Roland is like, please kill me, please kill me. And Doran's like, hey, mama, what's going
He's
on?
like, I've never been with a witch.
So good.
Priorities.
I just love him. I miss him. He says to Manon, I've never been with a witch. And she says, I've been with plenty of men. You're all the same. Tastes the same. She looked him over as if he were her next meal. I dare you, he managed to say. She says, I think not, or something. And then she says, but would you bleed red or black? And Dorian comes in hot with, I think, his most famous line from this series, which is, I'll bleed whatever color you tell me to.
I love it.
The man's got Riz.
Yes, he does.
I think it's important to note,
Yes.
though, too, like, he is doing this to try to get her to kill him. It's not like I actually
Right.
want to
Yeah.
make out with you. I'm trying to be like a typical frat boy, so you slice my throat out sort of thing.
But also, everyone keeps saying Manon is the most beautiful person they've ever seen.
Yes.
I mean,
so
fair.
if he were gonna
Yeah.
flirt to death with anybody,
True. What a way to go. Am I right, guys?
my last note from this whole conversation was, I want you to do lots of things to me. The prince said, raking his eyes along the witch's body. And I said, yeah, you do.
It's like half your notes
Now I
today.
I know.
I know, but then we like leave this and I'm like, am I shipping Dorian and Manon, or is this supposed to mean me not thinking that? Like, am I supposed to think that they're gonna be together, or is this just supposed to be like a joke, like Kyle was saying, like Dorian's just trying to literally die? Because then later Dorian's just thinking like Manon, and I'm like, okay, Dorian, like we know she's pretty, calm down.
Got
So
rizzed
maybe they're
to
going to be a
death.
thing. But then, of course, it's like we're seeing all of this and it's like, oh, cute, like everything's great and fine. And then we turn and it said, she found Lysandra standing there with a hand braced against a tree, wide-eyed, breathing hard. Kale was gone. And I was like, freaking Kale. Like, of course. And then we go into chapter 59 where Aelin is flipping epic to get Kale saved, like from Manon and from this whole moment, which we'll get into. But I just feel like it's good to say before we get into all of it that if after everything we're about to talk about, how epic Aelin is, and Kale is still a jerk and still a douche to everybody after this, I will be so freaking mad. Like, I know we see a little turnaround, maybe, but like if we get to the end and he's still the worst after what we just like are about to read and like talk about, I will be very mad.
Yeah, and she's almost kind of like egging Manon on a little bit, and Manon ends up just kind of like, like I have no interest in prisoners or battling today. And Aelin says, good. I suppose that makes you smarter than Baba Yellowlegs. I was like, oh, snap. Aelin trying to she's going in hard on this. Like, she's ready to fight.
Well, and
was
it felt
crazy.
like she would have been afraid and Manon would have been like, oh, it's fine, whatever, like I'm leaving, and everything would have been great. But then Rowan had to be like, remember that time you killed Baba Yellowlegs? Like, you can take her. And so now Aelin's all like, oh, well, you're smarter than Baba Yellowlegs. And I was like, oh.
Yep.
I mean, it's a really cool battle, but I don't think it had to happen in that moment. But it is
Yeah,
really
no, that's
interesting,
true.
too, with this like smell of witch, like the witch killer that lingers on her skin because of the scar that Baba Yellowlegs left.
Great perfume name. You just said the odor of a witch killer. I was like, that'd make a great perfume name.
Oh,
Witch killer.
I was like, but I don't have the like descriptions written here of like what exactly it smells like, something like salt and whatever. But one of them was like pure hatred. And I was like, is that like what she was feeling when she killed Baba Yellowlegs? I guess it was, because she was trying to like save Dorian's secret and whatever. And she chopped her to little pieces. That feels like a little, you can't just be like casual Sunday afternoon, like whatever, going to the carnival and oops. Like, it's like, I don't know. It felt like intense to me for that to be like the scent, but it's just interesting that it is there because that's never been mentioned before. Obviously, she's not seen any other witches since then, or Rowan or someone else hasn't smelled that on her.
Coming this fall to the Between Pages and Friends candle line.
Witch killer.
Rowan, Volg, and Witch Killer.
Because it said she like
Oh, that's
pulled
right.
back her lapel or
scars.
something, so she
Yeah,
she
she, like,
covered
showed
it.
it.
I thought it was like in passing, either around when it happened, or she like maybe it was in Windland when Rowan saw it. I thought somebody had seen it, or
Yeah,
something.
but nobody's like
and-
smelled it, I guess.
No, that's that's true.
I mean,
yeah.
Rowan's been all up in there, so
Yeah,
Could've
true.
smelled it.
And like for how many times he's like, I followed your scent, or her scent gets me, and he's never like, but it's hinted by that side smell of witch killer. Like, I don't know. The whole concept of it was interesting, and then I guess maybe just the witches smell it, and then is that going to come into play later? Assuming that she sees more witches one day, but
Yeah. Because I assume it's heavily tied to the whole iron nails thing, would be my guess.
Yeah.
And whatever, like, might be a
makes
magic thing with that and the witches.
I had written a note because Aelin is digging through Kale's blood in the grass, just sort of marking a word mark into the grass. I was like, has Aelin, she's done it before, did she purposefully practice making word marks with her feet? Because she is surprisingly adept at doing it with different mediums, like sand and stone, blood and grass. Did all those dance lessons help with her coming up with dance magic? Choreomancy, little choreography. But I just think that's so weird that it comes into play so often with specifically her feet. But I do love how it's like played off as her, like, I pictured her like hands behind her back, like, oh shucks, just like moving her foot through the ground. Because later
her
on,
feet, yeah.
Darn, Manon later is like, that's why she looked like a nervous wreck. But still, there's got to be some practice at home with that. Tying some like brush onto her foot and being like, yeah, I can make this mark.
Brush.
Hold it between your toes.
Yeah.
Gross.
I meant like putting it on her shoe or something. Not like monkey gripping it with her toes.
I don't know. But then they're having like this epic fight, and Adian's like doing arrows and Astrid is doing arrows, and then it just said a wall of muscle slammed into her, shielding her and shoving her to the stones, and a witch's arrow went clean through Rowan's shoulder. And so first of all I was like, ooh, a wall of muscle. And then I was like, oh, but there's an arrow, so that's not good. No. But he like takes one for her, which is like big and epic, and she like brings that up later that he was willing to die for her, take an arrow for her, which is like just a whole thing. But it goes into chapter 60 where he's like obviously injured and trying to stay and help her, and she says, run. It was a voice that she'd never heard herself use, a queen's voice that came out along with a blind yank she made on the blood oath that bound them together. His eyes flashed with fury, but his body moved as though she'd compelled him. So this is, I think, the first time she's done that. We know that Maeve has done that a lot. And so this is the first time that now she's done that. And I was kind of honestly expecting it to be a bigger deal for them, since Rowan, like, obviously just like served Maeve for however long and did that to him like all the time. And for him to maybe have a little more PTSD with that one. I think they're fine, obviously, like with what happens later. So I don't know. I would think I was expecting more from that. But hey, it was interesting. It's during this whole like insanely epic, freaking coolest fight ever. And it starts with Aelin Galathinius looked at Manon Blackbeak over their crossed sword and let out a low, vicious snarl. And I was like, oh my God, it's about to happen. Like, this is going to be insanely
about to go
epic.
down.
I know. I'm so excited. So they have this like kind of back and forth with swords, and then eventually she says, swords are boring, the queen said, and palmed 2 fighting knives. Manon sheaved Windcleaver along her own back and flicked her wrists, the iron nail shooting out. She cracked her jaw and her fangs descended. Indeed. I stopped and I was like, this is gonna be epic. Like, I was freaking out. And then Aelin, and I just feel like a super classic move, did the whole like, I picked up on it as soon as it was saying like pillar to pillar, she retreated, and she was like ducking each blow so that Manon was actually hitting the building. And I was like, oh, she's doing the whole like the building's gonna fall on her thing, which obviously worked out super well for Aelin, but it was just really cool fight. And I just love how it said their full names like attacking each other. It just like, it was so good, because we've been waiting for them to like meet and come together, and then they do, and it's just so cool. Anyway,
Yeah.
I loved it.
I also noted something about her, I guess, sounding like a queen for once, where she's in the middle of this fight, or I think it was maybe just about to begin, and Adian attempts to cross over and help, and she says, "Don't you dare, Adian." And he stops, and Manon is even like, wow, it's like really cool that she has such control over him. But then she says, Kale, keep an eye on him. And I just were like, yeah, because Kale can hold him back. Out of everyone, yep, Kale's going to do it. Adian will not be able to move an inch with that dude watching
That's
him.
right. Yep.
But I also wrote that at one point Manon was, I think, looking for Alien, like she had hidden behind one of the pillars. And she was like, enough, coward. And I was like, that's a trigger word for Alien. Actually, you want to dial it back on that one. She does not appreciate it.
Nice.
But it was a good fight.
I didn't catch that.
And then she's like, Manon's covered in a building and the whole freaking cliff, I guess. Is that what it's is going to fall?
Yeah.
And it said, Aelin had felt it before, a thread in the world, a current running between her and someone else. She had felt it one night years ago and had given a young healer the money to get the hell out of this continent. She'd felt the tug and had decided to tug back. Here it was again, that tug toward Manon, whose arms buckled as she collapsed to the stone. So love, first of all, bringing up Irene because we love her. Haven't seen her since then, but we love her. At least I do.
Hope
and
she's okay.
hope she's doing great at college. That's what I like to think. She's just at, she took all her money. She's just like spending a couple years learning to be a doctor, and she's going to come back and be cool and epic. Just that she also feels that tug to Manon. And then I will put it here too, because I was just talking about her coming back and being epic. But in the very next chapter, they go to take Rowan to a healer. And I was like, oh, it's going to be Irene, because she just remembered that she gave money to her. And like, what? And then it was just some lady. And I was like, okay, well, that's disappointing. But I did think that was going to happen. I was really excited. But that's okay. It's gonna happen. I'm on Irene watch.
Yeah, at the end of chapter 60, I just loved when Aelin's like turning back around and Manon's even like, why are you saving my life right now? And she says, you're too good a fighter to kill. Aelin breathed, hooking an arm under Manon's shoulders and hauling her up. The rock swayed to the left but held. Oh gods, if I die because of you, I'll beat the shit out of you in hell. I just wrote, I love them. Classic Aelin, doing something amazing and admirable and just lacing it with a threat on somebody's life.
I know, but I feel like Manon respects that, because that's what
for
Manon, that's how she acts too.
It's like their love language.
Yeah. Well, and then they get to safety. They're like across the bridge or whatever, and it's Manon's POV, and she's seeing Aelin like, go over to Rowan and see if he's okay. And it just said the queen's shoulders were shaking. Fireheart, the Fey warrior murmured. And then she like turns away. And I was like, no, I wanted more of this like cute Rowan moment and all the things, because that's so cute. And he calls her Fireheart a couple times in this little chapter chunk. And I just love that. And I think it's so cute. And then today we were at an event for my school. And Kyle, I don't remember what it was, but he said something.
I don't clap at places. It's just a weird.
Oh, yeah.
If people tell you to clap at a song, I'm not.
No, like in the song, they're like, clap with us, like he like applauds for people, but you know what I mean, like in the song, and you're like clapping along, like that.
I'm like, no, thank you.
But I don't remember why you called me Fireheart. Do you?
Because you glared at me, and I was like, I was not clapping along with the song, and it was like everyone else. And I was like, I'm just trying to be that stoic Fey male that you love so much, or whatever. And then she rolled her eyes. And I was like, you could be my Fireheart. And then she swooned a little bit. So I got some brownie points.
I was like, oh, okay.
She starts twirling her hair.
I know.
She's like, fine, I guess.
So dumb, but that did happen. So
now Kyle knows how to win an argument with you.
It's a cute nickname for her, though, for Aelin. And
is.
like the fact that like her mom called her that, and then he calls her that, but I don't think he actually knows that her mom called her that, unless she's told him at this point, but like we didn't see that. So I don't know. It's cute.
Well, he can read her mind, right? So he should know.
That is true. And the first time that her mom called her that was like one of the first times I cried during this series. So it's just like a whole precious moment for me. And for him to call her that, so cute.
Also cute is Fleetfoot in chapter 61, which was kind of funny because I like got really excited, and then I was like, I don't know why I'm so excited. I don't know anything about this dog. She's been on page for like like 3 paragraphs the entire series. But I appreciate that Sarah has kept her alive, because as soon as Selena got a puppy, I was like, oh no, here we go.
Well, and I feel like this little mention of him was only so that we knew he was still fine. Like, it literally wasn't.
Is it a he? I was calling it a she. See, I don't even know.
I think Fleep was a he. Either way, I feel like it was just one of those, like, don't forget, guys, the dog is still alive. I got you.
It's one puppy that went to live on a farm and actually did that.
That is true. That's funny. But it is interesting how he's still even bigger than what she remembered. Like, how big is this dog? Something's going on with Fleetfoot.
Oh, Fleetfoot is a she.
Oh, okay. My bad.
Confirmed.
Sorry.
I just thought it was cute, and that she like slept by Aylin's feet all night or whatever. It's like a cute little mention of the dog that I totally had forgotten existed. And then Chaol's inner thoughts. I feel like this is where we start to see a little bit of a turnaround, where he's thinking about Aylin, and he's thinking a monster he'd called her weeks ago. He had believed it and allowed it to be a shield against the bitter tang of disappointment and sorrow. He was a fool. And I was like, duh. It's only taken you 61 chapters, but we're finally getting a little bit of turnaround there.
Ma'am, we've read 5 books now. It's taken him a lot longer than 61 chapters.
I guess it's been 2 whole books, because it was like the end of Crown of Midnight where things really took a turn. Anyway, I just got so hyped, like at the end of chapter 61, where it says, as they made their way into Rifthold one last time.
I was shocked when I read that, to be like, why is this their last time going to Rifthold?
Well, if you refer back to her thesis statement at the beginning of this part of the book, and she's saying she's going to take down the king and kill Dorian, I wouldn't think that they would really go back after that, you know?
I guess.
Or if they ever go back there, it won't be Rifthold anymore.
So, like, then they go to Terrasen? Is that the conversation? Is that, like, the thought process, I guess?
Probably. I mean, they definitely have to go somewhere else immediately. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think Terrasen would be the next step after they blow up the tower and release magic and all that.
I just read a book the other day, and it was something like, but I would have said something different if I knew that was the last thing I'd ever say to them. And then it was, like, epic ending of the book. And so now I'm like, wait, this feels like that moment for the last time. And I'm like, it's something, I don't know. I'm freaking out about it.
Alien in one of like the previous segments too said like, you can wear the mask of Selena one last time. I don't think that would be the last time. It is still a useful persona, you know? Like even going into Rifthold, I don't know how she plans to get near the castle unless she has that easy way in, because we've read nothing yet that says that the king would suspect her of not being Selena anymore. At least that she knows. So maybe she could go in as Selena and be like, I returned from my mission in Wendlin, blah, 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 sneaky, sneaky sort of thing. And I don't know. I feel like there's more of Selena. In the same way, it's like, yeah, they're saying it's their last time in Rifthold, but who really knows, you know?
Yeah, I don't think they're planning to, like, stay and hang out and set up camp, you know?
Right. I think they'll definitely leave if they blow stuff up, but they could come back later. Maybe they're just thinking this could be our last time in Rifthold.
Then they should say, then what could be our last time? Sarah doesn't write
But they're doing
that.
it with confidence.
Yeah, this
You
is
go
the
in
plan.
confidently.
Which you know what happens when people make plans in fantasy books.
Everything goes great.
Because they plan it out. Everyone's honest with each other. There's no miscommunication.
Absolutely none.
The bad guys just go right along with their plan.
Yes.
There's no surprises.
They're like, oh, darn, you got us.
We would have got away with it if it weren't for you meddling kids.
The plan goes off perfectly, and that's why there's 3 more books, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
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 3 more
Ooh,
1,000-page books.
I did not think of it like that. Ooh, good point.
It's a little bit of meta knowledge, but
Chapter 62. I just had a note in here about Manon like speaking to the king and saying, you should send your son to Morath. It seems like his kind of place. Oh, there's not really an explanation given here, though. Why do you think Manon told the king to send Dorian to Morath?
I wrote in response to this question that I imagine it's due to her realizing he's a real person stuck in the body with a demon and believes herself capable of getting him out or finding a way for him to do so himself. So she wants him with her. Because I feel like her next move is sort of figuring out how she's going to get out of Morath with her team. And then knowing that he is someone, knowing what they did to Roland and what he said before he died, maybe she thinks, well, this could be useful information if we can get him free of his possession.
Yeah, I just feel like it would be dangerous for him to like go to, you know, what seems to be like the heart of where they're doing all of this stuff and controlling these people. I don't know.
I think my real answer, going with like what Kyle's saying, is maybe she also has like Kale thoughts in he could be the king if we save him, and like it could be different.
Oh, yeah.
Like that kind of a thought. But my answer I wrote down here was it's because they're in love and she wants to be with him. Because they're flirty. Because she has this conversation with them, and then it says, but Manon was already taking to the sky, Abraxos beating his wings hard. She watched the prince until he was a speck of black hair and wondered what it was like to be trapped within that body. I was like, oh, yeah, you do. She's all about him. He's all about her. And I'm okay with that.
I mean, I'd be charmed if he said those things to me.
I know. I am charmed for her. So, anyways, I don't know that that's real. I think it's funny that they're flirty, but I don't know that I'm actually shipping them like I do Adie and Lysandra. That's real. This one I'm just joking about, but I do think it's funny.
Anything could happen on Love Island. So,
what are your other ships right now? Just a quick check in on the dock. Where are the ships at?
I don't know. Obviously, Rowan and Aelin. Lysandra and Adian.
Okay, easy one.
Kale and Nezrin. That becomes a thing.
Okay.
I mean, the only other people right now are Dorian and Manon. There could be other people that show up, right? I think that's all my characters. That's all my choices. With the choices I have.
Abraxos and?
I pick the obvious ones. Oh, Abraxos and whatever Asterians or Astrians, excuse me. Yeah.
Asterian.
Or Sorrels, because it sounded like Sorrel's wyvern was.
And Sorrels, you're right. I'm a hot mess.
And the Stygian spiders and?
Ew.
Ew.
All right, fair enough. Moving on.
Still in the same chapter, I just was hyped that Manon went back and she's telling everyone that she slaughtered all the rebels to give them time to get away because she owes Aelin that life debt now.
Does that make it good? Like, is she saying, like, I did this for you, now we're even? I told people you're dead, now I don't owe you? Or do you feel like she still owes her a life debt?
I know. I kind of got
know.
that too. I don't know.
Just something I thought about.
Yeah, there wasn't any like definitive language. Like
Yeah.
I think she refers to the fact that she owes her a life debt, but there didn't seem to be. I guess
Right.
she
We're
wouldn't really
even.
have a way of getting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess she wouldn't have a way of getting confirmation. I don't know. I just thought it was awesome.
It was.
Yeah. And then I was the last one to write all the notes in the script this week, and so I just wanted to like point out, since nobody else did, I don't really have any thoughts or theories about it. I just thought it was important to point out that there are now these like magic mirrors that are going to like amplify the shadow fire. That felt like a big moment to point out. And it's also interesting because the king, in the like tiny king POV that we've gotten in this whole entire series, he talks about how he had specifically went to go see Baba Yellowlegs to get some of these mirrors from her. But since she was gone and he didn't like get the chance to do that. And so it's like, did Aelin accidentally save them or like buy them a bunch of time because she accidentally destroyed mirrors whenever she was fighting Baba Yellowlegs and she didn't even know that? And the fact that they're like in a little wagon that looks just like Baba Yellowlegs' little wagon thing.
Yeah.
But just seems kind of important.
My last note for 62 was Elid's like trying to make her escape real quick because she sees the wagons coming and she's like heading up to the room, and then Vernon's in there and he says, "Going somewhere, Elid?" And I highlighted "going somewhere" and I put, yes, an SJM villain's favorite question, because fun fact, going somewhere is in this book 4 times. Just in Queen of Shadows, when someone is caught by not Dorian, Manon being scary when she like catches a lead in her room. And then Lorcan when he finds Aelin, and in this instance with Vernon to lead. It just made me laugh. I had to do a search for it because I was like, I know this has been in here multiple times already. I just
It's a
loved it.
solid villain line.
It works every time.
But I mean, they were going somewhere, so like, yeah.
That is true. But that leads us into chapter 63 with Vernon and Alid having this conversation. And it was something Kyle and I talked about a little bit, like was, what do we think is going on with Alid? Like, does she have some sort of power? Because even Vernon says, don't you know what kind of prize you are, what you might be able to do? Because there's because there is black beak blood. Stop, you made it worse. Blah, 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 blah. Because there is oh my God.
Black bleak.
Beak blood. Black beak blood. Okay, I'm ready.
You found your new vocal warm-up.
Yeah, honestly. Okay. Because there is black beak blood in your veins, along with our own family's generous line of magic, the witches don't have magic, not like us, but you as a hybrid of both lines. And then he was like, you'll do your house a great honor, as he's like throwing her into jail, basically. It's just interesting. Something's extra going on with her. I don't know. And then I just feel really bad for her because everyone just forgets about her and she's just chilling in prison. So that's depressing. And then we turn around and we go into Astrid's whole chapter. So this gets really intense. Connor and I both have like a bunch of highlights from it. And so the ones that I had were just like her talking about how she met this hunter in the woods and she came back a month pregnant. And I was like, oh, something is like really about to happen right now. And then just, that the baby was stillborn. I waited to hear the cry of triumph, but there was only silence. And then your grandmother, she opened her eyes. Your grandmother struck me. And then it like goes into like this huge description of like what they did with the baby's body and like what they did to her. And when Astrid then shows her stomach, that the grandmother had like branded her with the words unclean so that like no one would ever want to like lay with her again because she's such an embarrassment and all that stuff. And the part that like really got me was when it said, I never went back to the hunter. I don't know how to explain the brand, how to explain your grandmother or apologize. I was afraid he'd treat me as your grandmother had, so I never went back. I'd fly over every few years just to see. She wiped out her face. He had never married, and even when he was an old man, I'd sometimes see him sitting on that front porch as if he were waiting for someone. Something was cracking and aching in Manon's chest. And that's when I just started crying, like hardcore, just about the stillbirth and then just like her poor, sad relationship and stuff and the life that she lived. And then the fact that she's like kept this all a secret. It was heavy and really sad.
This one almost got me like when she was talking about waiting to hear her baby cry, because that obviously very different circumstances, but I had 2 C-sections, so I couldn't like see what was happening. And the second time was an emergency one. And so waiting for that moment and hearing our baby cry was like, that was the moment that I knew everything was going to be fine. And we have talked about that before, like just in, telling our birth story or whatever. So that was just like super emotional. And then even after that, when Astrid's talking about like why she decided to stay like with the 13 and with Manon, she says, I told myself I would dedicate my life wholly to being your second, to serving you, not your grandmother, because she's saying like, obviously, like I knew there was a reason that your grandmother was hiding me from you, and whatever your grandmother saw in you that made her afraid, it was worth waiting for, worth serving. So I have. And I like almost started crying here. Like I think I would have, but then I got a FaceTime from my goofy toddlers. Which was like, good timing. But I just love Astrid, and this is just so like gut wrenching, and it felt even more heartbreaking to read the second time around. And just like, I don't know. Lauren's been saying for multiple episodes, something's going on with Astrid. Like,
I know, and I was just about to say that. Like, I've been bringing it up, but the whole time I thought that it was like some sneaky behind the scenes. She was gonna betray them or something like. Off, like something bad, like she was like working actively against them, or she was going to go do something stupid and get herself killed. And so like the fact that it's such loyalty and like the complete opposite of what I was thinking, so like it really surprised me. And then obviously to be done in this way too, so I don't know. It was sad, and I love her so much. So
I know, me too.
This was probably the closest I've come to crying. But I didn't actually cry.
Wow.
But it was the closest I've come because it hits home for me and my family. Because I do have a very distinct memory of my dad taking me and my older brother, and I don't remember exactly how old I was, but we went to the hospital, and it was like a situation where I was too young to really know what was happening anyway, but I knew we were getting a brother, and picked up Mom and went home without a brother. And there was a long time that the house was a lot quieter, and I didn't understand why, but I spent a lot of extra time with my mom around those days is what I remember. And growing older now, I realize what happened, and I've been told the stories, but it was intense.
Yeah.
You can make me cry on the podcast.
I know, me too. I just love your mom so much, so it's just
I know.
extra sad.
My mom's a great lady and an
the
amazing
best.
mom for not letting it, like, I guess, get past her to me and my brother. There was such a long time that, like, it was like years later that I had or we had, I didn't have him, my other little brother, who's like, we have this long separation. Like, I have an older brother by 2 years. Me, it would have been 2 years, and then another 2 years for her third son. And it was like a miracle that he could have even happened medically, basically. But yeah, just like I had not felt the full impact of that till I was much older. So props to my mom for holding it together somehow, because it takes a lot.
Yeah.
And to anyone who's gone through that.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on. My next note in this chapter is a lot more lighthearted. There was a part in the chapter where Manon says to Asterin, we need to proceed carefully. And Asterin asks, well, what are you planning? And Manon just responds, it's the last line in the chapter, something very stupid, I think. And I was like, finally, Manon's like fully on board with the rest of them, are like, something needs to be done. And I really think it was her feeling alone, because she had doubts, even though she would not want to admit it. She had doubts about what was happening. And it wasn't until her team came to her and was like, yeah, something's wrong, that she felt like she had the backing of others to do it. So good on her, good on her team.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm really interested in whatever this stupid plan is.
Yeah.
Because they're like flying to Rifthold, so something's going to happen.
I'm sure it has something to do with Elide and Dorian. Otherwise, I feel like she's pulling her own little chess pieces together.
Interesting. So we get to chapter 64, and it's back with Aelin, and they're like trying to make the plan and how they're going to get into the castle and do the things and whatever. And I just love this line from her, because there's like times where she is just totally BA and doing the things and growling and fighting and like not bossing people around, but like, like leading them and doing all the things. And then there's like this kind of moment where they're like, what are you going to do? Like, how are you going to get there? And it said, so you're going to ask Reskin Brulo to just leave the back door open so you can sneak in. And she says, don't be so simple-minded. I'm just going to walk through the front door. It's like, of course you are, Aelin. Oh, I love her.
Yeah. And that was Adian and her talking. They're like at Rowan's bedside or whatever, and he's finally waking up. It says Adian like yawns, makes an excuse to leave or whatever. And as he's going out, Rowan says, Adian, and he says, thank you. And Adian just says, anytime, brother. And I just love that, because I'm just like, it's her court coming together. And I was just like, I read a few lines of this chapter, and I thought it was just like a thank you in passing for helping like save him or whatever. But I feel like in the moment he's feeling thankful that Adian is another guy who can like take charge the way Rowan does. He knows that Adian can take care of things if Rowan is like this. And I think that's also a part of where that thanks comes from. So it's just like another layer of that thank you. And just what I've loved in this book, seeing all these different members of her court coming together and just like forming that bond around her that she's obviously been missing for all of the books previously in the series, like leading up to all these moments.
Yeah. Well, and that they're like building bonds with each other outside of her. Like that like it is building not just the court for her, but like a kingdom and people that want to be together. Yeah. It's really cool.
I also really liked this moment and, like for the same reasons, but I couldn't help but view it differently due to a movie that I hope Lauren thought of as well. We've recommended it to you before on the podcast. Paul Rudd, Amy Poehler joint movie. But there's just a scene where him and his brother,
which is Schmidt, by the way. The guy who is Schmidt
Nice.
is his brother in the movie. It's
Back
called
screen.
They Came Together. You should go
Yeah.
watch it, everyone. We've mentioned it multiple
it's-
times. But yes.
real weird humor, but it's great. But in this specific scene, it's a classic movie trope of like someone walking out after a conversation, like a heartfelt conversation, and someone stops them and says, "Hey," and they were like, "What?" And he goes, "Thanks." But they do that to each other like 7 times in a row before they leave the room. It's like, "Hey, thanks." Oh wait, thanks. Over and over again.
And they're like, hey, thanks. And it's like really long. And then movie continues, life happens, and then they're in another scene together. And they do it again, like another however many times.
Oh,
It's
just
just
one
so
more thing?
stupid.
Thanks. Lauren and I do it to each other all the time, like when we're leaving the house.
All the time.
Oh wait.
It's like, hey,
Thanks.
I'm leaving, but thanks.
I like
But
it.
yes, great
It's
scene
so
of
good.
them all coming
Yes.
together.
Also in chapter 64, when Rowan asks Aelin why she saved Manon, and Aelin replies, because that golden-haired witch, Astrid, she screamed Manon's name the way I screamed yours. How can I take away somebody who means the world to someone else, even if she's my enemy? Which was just so much more impactful after reading this other chapter where we get Astrid's whole like backstory, and then Rowan replies, you make me proud to serve you. And I wrote, me too. Go off, queen.
Well, and I just love her response was just like a jaunty slant to her lips, but silver lined her eyes. I know. And just her being like, I know you do. But
I'm
she
the
was like
best.
tearing up at the same time. Like,
Yeah.
I love them.
And then I was freaking out. I don't remember this happening here, but when Lysandra gets the letter and she's reading it out loud and it says, any debts owed to me by Lysandra and Evangeline are now paid in full. And this almost made me cry too. I was like so hyped reading this part.
Especially because she had talked about earlier in this chapter chunk about how because she didn't get Arabin's money that the lady had like
Yeah.
made more time on their stuff and she
Yeah.
tried to like play it off like it would be fine and she could do that and
Yeah.
stuff. But then to use Arabin's money to pay off their stuff
Yes.
anyways, it was great.
Oh, and then after Lysandra finds out that her debts have been paid, I think is when they have this conversation where Lysandra like can't believe that Aelin did this. And she's like, I've never had friends that cared before, whether I lived or died or what happened to me. And so that was just a really cool moment between the two of them.
Aelin keeps having such like deep heart-to-heart moments with people and then she just like cracks a joke in the middle of it like she's the person to bring the comedy and like, you know, keep it lighthearted, and I just love that about her and her like character and stuff. You know, Lysandra is starting to cry like she's reading the letter. Aelin said, I hate you for being so beautiful even when you cry. And then she reads the whole letter and it said that Lysandra lowered her hands, her face now puffy and splotchy, and Aelin sighed, oh, thank the gods, you do look hideous when you cry. Lysandra just started laughing, and I literally laughed out loud, which I don't often do when I'm reading books. So that was just very funny to me. And then it switches back to Manon's POV. They are flying to Rifthold. She goes back, finds out that they didn't send Dorian to Morath, I guess. And so now she decides to fly to Rifthold. So part of me is like, did she do it because Dorian wasn't there? So now she's going to get Dorian, or was the plan always to go to Rifthold just for Aelin or whatever her other plan is? All of that is, I'm so sad for Alid because everyone just kind of forgot about her. No one checked on her. She's just in the prison and is there for who knows how long, and that is just really depressing for her.
Yeah.
So
Did it say like how long they were back in Morath? Because like I don't know if Manon would have even expected to see Alid around, but it is a bummer that she didn't like check on her or.
Last time they flew off, it said it took like 3 or 4 days to get their supplies ready. So I'm not sure if that's true of this flight as well, but
I thought here they left straight from wherever her and Astrid were.
I thought they went back. Maybe I'm confusing the timelines there, because she goes and talks to Duke Parrington at some point and asks, did he send Dorian?
oh yeah, because he shows them the plans. Like, here's all the info you've earned by showing me you're on my side. So yeah, they were back in Morath at one point.
Yeah, and then I thought from there is when she decided that they were leaving. but maybe I'm confused. But either way, at some point, it switches to a lead's POV where it says she's been there for 4 days, and then back to Manon's POV where she's like about to leave. So assuming that's around the same timeline as why it would show up there that she, I don't know, had been there for 4 days at least while Manon touched base and then left again. So
I told Lauren I feel like we're getting a sped up parallel to Aylin's storyline in a lead where just downtrodden, nobody knows you, you're in this prison both before and after this point, like she's been kept in a tower for so long or whatever. And then we'll eventually find out that she has some ability that surpasses others by far. I feel like it's just like a squished timeline of what happened to Aylin, but there's some parallels there.
In chapter 65, this joke just really caught me off guard, and it made me think of like how I used to make fun of the phrase. I think she says it more in the Akatar series, but Sarah often writes like, he barked a laugh, and I used to like make fun of that phrase, but then I feel like I literally did that when I read this part because it just caught me off guard. I was not expecting it, but this is when I think Rowan meets Lorcan up on the rooftop, and it's like the middle of the night or something, and so Rowan comes up to the rooftop, and Lorcan says, "Should I thank you for putting on pants?" And Rowan says, "I didn't want you to feel inadequate," Rowan replied, leaning against the roof door. When Lorcan first showed up, I was like, oh man, here we go. This is going to be bad. This is the first thing they say to each other.
there's so many jokes about Lorcan and his size in this book. Poor guy.
Pretty soon after that, I think it was like, not even like 2 sentences later, he asks him like, "Oh, how'd you like all the word hounds?" And Lorcan just goes, "Oh, I slaughtered them all," with like a sly smile. And like, I somehow doubt it, because maybe it was just swept over in this conversation, but it does not make any tactical sense whatsoever. I don't know how much of a tactician Sarah is, but like, he definitely got one. Surely the other ones would have had better guards after that, on higher alert, much more so after even more. And he may have killed them all, but he's unscathed right now, and he should not have access to his Fey healing magic in the place that he is. And I doubt he would have gotten all 4 of them by not getting hit like pretty bad once. But also, he's not being chased or hiding from the King's Guard from someone they should all know is killing the word hounds. So I don't know. It just smells a little fishy to me. Something smells rotten in Rifthold. I don't think the word hounds are dead. I think he's faking it.
Not just the sewers.
Yeah, I don't know why he'd fake it yet.
Maybe they just don't know that there's more.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's true. I guess they didn't know if there was more.
To kind of add to that, I feel like, because before Aelin was hoping or saying that like they would kind of chase after him. Mm-hmm. But I feel like the past couple times we've seen him, and even now, he'd be like way more pissed.
Yeah.
He would like mention it if like he was being chased by all these like weird demons and creatures and a bunch of soldiers. So I don't know. I think I'm kind of on your side here. I can see your point of it being like, yeah, like he clearly doesn't have a scratch on him. Mm-hmm. He's made a point to let them know when he's like super pissed off at them.
Yeah.
And he seems to be kind of working with them a little bit right now, or at least being somewhat agreeable. So it's like, I don't know, clearly that part of her plan didn't take.
Because he didn't he wasn't the one to bring it up. Rowan asked. He wasn't. Yeah, right. He didn't show up on the roof and was like, "Why'd you do that to me?" sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Honestly, though, I feel like he wouldn't, because he knows that it was like a trap that this 19-year-old girl set for him. So I wouldn't think that he would want them to know that he was fazed by it.
He seems to hold a grudge very strongly.
Yeah,
I don't know. We'll see.
There's that, and the fact that it's like, it is swept over. Like, it's like, how'd it go? I killed them. On to the next thing. I'm like, really? There's no further questioning there. Because, like, it's part of their plan, which I mentioned later. It's like, they have to be dead for us to get here. So, like, do we not want to double check on that situation? Whatever.
That's a good point.
That's a good point.
But I even highlighted that to be like, oh, good to know. They're all dead. Check off my list. I didn't question
I
it
believe
at all.
you. Why would you lie to me?
Well, and it's funny because my next note is like, should we trust him? Because so it's funny that I'm just like, yes, got that, but not this. I'm doing what they did to Arabin earlier with the Kale Lysandra thing.
Yeah.
But now I'm doing it over here. My bad. Anyways, so they have this whole like interaction though about the amulet and the ring. They just like pass it to each other. Everything's fine. But I don't know that I trust that this ring is the real ring, since they also gave him a fake amulet. Like, I just feel like if he can easily accept some fake magic-y whatever, I don't know that I trust it. But also in this, for them to be like, oh, when he finds out that we put that ring in the necklace and that's what's the magic. I was picturing like some cute, dainty little amulet that goes around a cute little 8-year-old's neck, you know, like something adorable, not something chunky enough that a whole ring could fit in.
Something from Claire's.
So, yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Little Hello Kitty holding a gem.
I need like a picture of the amulet, if that exists, because I think that would help me figure that out. So I'd appreciate that.
Now that you mention it too, like with the feeling of the magic on these things, has it been mentioned before why they can do the things they do in this area that magic is not working? Like, why are physical things still capable of holding and having an aura of magic?
The amulet is a word key. The ring is made from a word key. Or from a word, whatever. The king is making
That's
those.
what I was missing. The ring was made from the word key. But the ring that protects them from the Vogue, was that
Ethel's ring.
Word
I would
runes
assume
or
so, but I don't think we know.
Okay.
It's just interesting that they could feel all this other magic stuff, but they don't feel anything from this ring. That's the only reason. I have a feeling, because they don't feel it, that it doesn't work. But I don't know.
Feel watch.
Yeah. Gotta feel it.
I guess that's a vibe check, more accurately.
But feelings leads me into my next note. Just kidding. But this is about Dorian. Just him like having something to hold on to finally. And again, I joke. I think I keep saying jokingly, but I think I keep putting it out there because maybe it does happen, about him falling in love with Manon. But at least it's helping him out right now to have something to hold on to. And it just like, Manon, a name. Do not think of that one. Do not think of her, is what the demon had said. The demon hated that name, Manon. Enough, it said. So it's like this whole back and forth. But it's like the fact that he remembers something and then it happens to be her. I think it's cute if they did love each other. But also, I don't know if that's weird. He keeps laughing at me every time I say it. It's probably one of the dumbest theories I've said, according to how you react. But that's what I'm feeling right now.
I mean, I was fangirling over there flirting, and he's literally trying to die, so...
I know. It could be a thing. I don't know. Anyways. And then she's having this conversation with Kale. Aelin is. And it said, Aelin said to Kale as they stood on the roof of her apartment, gazing toward the glass castle and the setting sun. It was awash in gold and orange and ruby, as if it were already aflame. And I was like, foreshadowing? Like they're just going after the tower, but is it going to be the whole glass castle? Like something's going to happen. So yeah, I'm excited for that. I know.
In this conversation with Kale, though, I just had a couple of highlights, which I all grouped under bold text that says, finally, thank you, Kale.
Yes.
Where he says, maybe I don't want to be that person anymore. And then internally, that person, that stupidly loyal, useless person, had lost everything. His friend, the woman he loved, his position, his honor, lost everything with only himself to blame. I'm sorry, he said about Nehemia, about everything. It wasn't enough. It never would be. And I'm just, this is some long-awaited character development from Kale. And then I feel like even more impactful was Aelin responding. And she said, but in the end, I'm grateful that you sent me to Wendlin and made that bargain with your father, which is so true. I mean, he was acting, I feel like he was acting impulsively and he was trying to protect her, but it was also selfish and like, it just ended up changing her life in the best ways and helped her like hone her power. And she found Rowan and like did all of these things and was able to come back to Rifthold as like literally a different person. I'm here for this. I'm here for this whole conversation.
I do wish that she would approach him about her views on Nehemia, because she had a nice moment back at her training days where she was like, I cannot blame Kale anymore. Her death was her plan. And I really feel like she should approach him with that information to say, like, that is not something he needs to take the whole blame for.
Yeah.
There are things he did wrong, but, like, it was her. She planned out her own death and acted on it.
That's true.
Yeah,
Good point.
that is true. But I had a ton of notes from this conversation and different notes than yours, but we would have just been rewriting the book at that point. So I didn't really include any of them. But at the end of all my notes, I just wrote, final freaking Lee. Like, it's about dang time, Kale. I said that earlier when I brought up the negative stuff at the beginning. Hopefully now we're at the end that he turns it around, and how I said too before the fight with Manon, like if he doesn't stop being a jerk and all down on himself and whatever, specifically about Aelin, then he's, I don't know, hopefully this is the moment. Hopefully it will be okay. And it will all be fine. But I love this too with their conversation at the end too, that said Aelin flicked her gaze over his shoulder to where Nezrin's slim shadow filled the doorway onto the roof, where she'd been waiting for the past few minutes. And he said, you know, so do you, Kale, like you also deserve to be happy. Looking at Nezrin, like, you know, she and I haven't. And she's like, I know, but like you should. Like, she's a good woman. You deserve each other. And he was like, this is assuming she has any interest in me. And a knowing gleam was in her eyes. She does. Kale glanced back towards Nezrin, who gazed at the river, and he smiled a bit. And I was like, oh, this is so cute. And then they like go on a walk, and they like have their own moment, and they go into a temple, I guess. He says, where do you think home might be? And Nezrin braced her arms on her knees. I don't know. And then he said later, any ideas? She said, maybe once this is over, we could figure that out together. It's like, oh, good for them. I love them so much. And they're just so cute. I want everyone to be happy. So
Next week on Love Island Aurelia.
I know.
Another one of my favorite lines from this whole series was Aelin saying, we do not look back, Kale. It helps no one and nothing to look back. We can only go on. And Kale responds, what if we go on only to more pain and despair? What if we go on only to find a horrible end waiting for us? Aelin looked northward as if she could see all the way to Terrasen. Then it is not the end.
So good.
So good.
Such a good line. Well, and then Kale has his own little moment here, and it said, you know, that he had gone to a party on the eve of summer solstice. Once a lifetime ago, he and Dorian had gone to one of those parties, dropping by several in one night. He had never enjoyed it. He had only gone to keep Dorian safe. I assume this is the one they're referencing that they like danced with Aelin. They just didn't know that or whatever. But it said he should have enjoyed it. He should have savored every second of it with his friend. He'd never realized how precious the calm moments were. And I was like, he's having his own lavender soap moment, which I know is like weird to say, but it is him realizing that like those things didn't matter, and like the people you're with matter, or like those like precious moments that you get in those downtimes and stuff like that. And I just thought that was really precious for him, to like have that realization. And I can't wait for him and Dorian, at least I hope, to have some like epic cute reunion and bro hug it out. I don't know what's gonna happen, but I'm excited for them. It goes back to like, this is like Kale and Nezrin having their conversation, and it makes me just a little nervous whenever characters do this. But she was like, promise me, she repeated, looking at their hands that they were holding together, that you will walk out of that castle tomorrow. And he's like, I promise. And that just, that never goes good in a
business.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about it. It makes me nervous for him. Kale needs something good in his life, so I really hope that nothing happens to either of them, that he needs something for a minute. I don't know how I feel about it.
That goes and gives me a better ground for the secret theory that I just said while you guys were gone.
Oh.
Wink, wink. So my next note were Rowan's thoughts. Now that she tricked Lorcan into killing them all for her, the way would be clear for him and Adian to plant the vats, set the fuses, and use their phase swiftness to get the hell out of the before the tower exploded. He's talking about he tricked Lorcan into killing all the Wyrthounds, and that is also why I feel like there's too much faith in these things being dead. They didn't go confirm the kills except for just the one. And if something is going to go wrong with their plans, it feels like it merits checking beforehand. And I feel like this is going to be the thing that nobody's checking on currently. That it's like, oh, yeah, they're fine. And it's going to be the monkey wrench in the gears.
Well, I agree. Like, it just feels like too many things are stacked on. Like, they have to do this, this, and this, and then they'll be safe. Like, that's just a little too much risk in there.
Yeah.
Makes me nervous. Everything's making me nervous, and I don't know that. I know I want to keep reading. Like, I know I want to like know what happens, but I'm like scared to keep reading because then things happen at the end of books that aren't good, and it stresses me out. So then they're like debriefing. They're like getting back.
Yeah,
It's
they
the
are.
night before everything's gonna happen. And Rowan was like gonna start talking. He said Rowan started, and then he forgot everything he was gonna say as he bolted upright from the bed. Aelin leaned against the closet doorway, clad in a nightgown of gold, metallic gold, just as he requested. I knew it would come. Like, I knew the gold thing would like come back somehow, but I didn't expect it to be like a little nightgown outfit situation going on here. I'm all about it. Just once, she said. I want to kiss you just once. Every thought went out of his head. That sounds like you're expecting not to do it again. Even though when we're apart tomorrow, I'll be with you every step of the way and every step after, whatever that may be. And I was like, they're just so precious and I love them. This also, again, makes me nervous for things that are going to happen. It's just like when everything seems cute. Like I said this at the end of Heir of Fire. I was like, and this is where the book can end. Like everything is fine. We're good. We don't have to keep reading. JK, there's still another like however many 100 pages. So
That's when it gets crazy. It's like the last 100, 200 pages of a Sarah J. Maas book. It's absolutely nuts. I was also screaming over the gold nightgown. In his inner thoughts, Rowan says if he moved an inch, he'd be on her, would take her in his arms, and begin learning what made the Heir of Fire really burn.
hey.
Ayo. And then I had to highlight where it says bastard, she murmured, and kissed him. And I said, it's about damn time.
Yay. I wish it was like a big, long, passionate, but it's just like a small, fleeting kiss.
Just a little kiss. Yeah. And then Rowan says, are you trying to bribe me into surviving? And Aelin says softly, you make me want to live, Rowan, not survive, not exist, live. And I swoon, and that's my last note for this chapter section.
I know. And he had no words to that. Like it hit him deeper, harder than any kiss could have. So he climbed in bed and held her tightly all through the night. It's so precious. But it's again not because the bad things are happening tomorrow because everything is good tonight. But that's it. That's the end of these chapters.
Whole book.
That's it. Yeah.
We did it. Read the next one. We don't. This is the end of the book.
The next one's worse.
Oh, dang it.
Yep. So let's get the thoughts and theories as we kind of wrap up the episode here.
So I imagine the last part of this book centers around the tower explosion plan and a little of Manon getting what she needs out of Morath and bolting. The tower plan, like I said, is going to have a hitch. The Wardhounds live. The explosion doesn't quite work. Someone doesn't make it far enough away from the explosion. Something goes wrong. Aside from that, I do think the tower will come down and magic is released and all those held back will get us like a second wind and join the fray, so to speak. I still think the king is held captive, just as Dorian is, but maybe too far gone to be left alive, unfortunately. I think the towers did rid the space of magic to make it easier to rule, but also make it harder for the Vogue to rise as quickly, is the main thing. Because I feel like if he was under full control of it, they wouldn't get rid of magic since they use magic users to possess. And I feel like him getting rid of magic was like his last movement against what was happening to him before he got totally taken over or whatever.
Interesting.
I do feel like there are other mini small things that might come to pass, but I don't think they'll happen in this book, just because there aren't enough pages, so I won't mention them here.
Sure. I agree that I think the tower is going to come down, but I don't think it's going to like release magic like they think they will. Like a 10-minute experiment with Dorian's magic with Kale and some crystals, and they're like, oh, that's how it works for all these towers that have held for years and years. Like, I just feel like I don't know about that. Like, maybe it will just do this little area, but it won't do like all of the towers, or maybe that wasn't it the whole entire time and it's something else. Like, I don't know. I do think that, at least I hope, let's say, that they're going to, like, save Dorian. Maybe not, like, out of the collar, but, like, maybe out of the castle. Like, they kidnap him or something. That sounds bad, but something like that.
Prince snap him?
yeah, they're gonna like prince snap him, especially because like Manon is coming to Rifthold, so maybe she's like coming for Dorian. Like I said that earlier, like she checked that he wasn't coming to Morath, so she's going to Rifthold. I'm very afraid and nervous for Alid. I'm nervous that they're gonna like put a Vogue baby in her or something bad's gonna happen. I don't know. I just feel like not everyone's gonna have a happy story. I don't know. Maybe it's for a lead. That sounds really bad. I'm trying not to Sorsha her, but that's my theory. I do think there's something going on with, I've said it all day, with Aelin, Adian, Manon, Astrid, and maybe some of the other 13 with their like gold eyes, maybe like descendants of Vogue kings, or maybe that means they can't be inhabited by the Vogue. I just feel like that will play a big part of that. Maybe if they save Dorian, that Dorian will be able to like give them that insider information, because they don't know that the Vogue is scared of their gold eyes. Like this Vogue and his brain is like freaking out about it. I don't know. I feel like there's just like a lot of open-ended stuff, and I'm probably going to cry like 100 times.
Kind of going back to something you said in our last notes where you're like, oh man, I hope nothing happens to Kale, because when they say this, things always happen. Because Irene was sort of hinted at the end of this little chapter section. Twice she was mentioned like, oh, I remember that healer, or we need to heal her. And now that you said something might happen to someone, I was really debating if something would happen to Dorian or Kale, but now I think it's going to be Kale because you said that. And because the next step is going to Terracin. But there's 2 books, so it's split POV, so I feel like... Isn't it a tandem read next? Or am I mistaken?
It is, but no one says it's going to Terracin.
Oh, yeah. I'm just saying that's like my opinion. Like
That's Kyle's next step.
That's the next step. Because where else are they going to go? Back to Wendlin, maybe, but then they have to deal with Maeve, so not doing that. Some of them are going to go to Terracin. Sure. Kale or Dorian, badly injured, goes to the south for the College of Healers, and that's how Irene will re-enter the story. That's as far as my prediction goes right now. Because I literally just thought when you guys were going like, oh, it's 2 books. Because that makes sense for 2 BOVs. But anyway.
I feel like there's going to be 200 POVs. We have one book right now, and there's already like 10. So.
Yes. More of that, but I feel like it'll be central. This area. But who knows?
Let's hope. That brings us to the cry counter. I believe I'm the only one adding today when I cried for Astrid. So I am at 10. Connor is at 3. And the boys still beg 0.
0.
Yeah.
Close call, though.
0 with a close call.
Add that in there. Type that. Yeah. Plus 1 close call.
0.2. Add a star spoke.
0.2.
Well, that is a wrap on episode 15. Join us next week as we finish Queen of Shadows, the whole book, chapter 66 to the end of the book.
And while you're here, please rate, review, subscribe, and follow wherever you're listening. Be sure to visit our website for merch and other resources. As a reminder, we will be heading into the tandem read right after the Queen of Shadows, so make sure you order your tandem reading guide bookmarks if you haven't yet. And while you're on our website, be sure to sign up for our monthly newsletter. And lastly, check out our Patreon for a community of perks. And see you later, alligators.
Bye-bye now.